So hey guys, this is your favorite fictional vortex. So in this video, we will see what if Naruto was the third son of Sparda, wielding both devil and angel. L power Naruto x Lady x Trish Devil May Cry. But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. Chapter 1. Crimson Awakening. The scent of blood hung heavy in the midnight air. Metallic and primal. Naruto Uzumaki's lungs burned as he sprinted through the forest canopy, each footfall barely disturbing the rain-slick branches beneath him. What had begun as a routine B-rank escort mission had spiraled into something far more sinister once the team crossed into the borderlands between fire and sound countries. "Sakura, on your six," he shouted, voice cutting through the rainfall. The pink-haired Kunoichi pivoted instantly, her chakra-enhanced fist connecting with what appeared to be a standard sound ninja. The impact should have pulverized bone and tissue. Instead, her target merely staggered backward, its face splitting into an inhuman grin that stretched literally from ear to ear, revealing rows of needle-like teeth. That's not possible," Sakura whispered, green eyes widening as the creature's wounds knitted themselves closed with unnatural speed. Kakashi's voice crackled through their communication devices. "Fall back to position Delta. These aren't ordinary shinobi." Something about these enemies felt fundamentally wrong to Naruto. The Nine Tails chakra within him was reacting strangely, not with the usual angry boil of hatred, but with something that almost felt like recognition. Like the fox was acknowledging kin. "I don't think we can outrun them," Sai commented flatly, his brush dancing across his scroll despite the pouring rain. Ink beasts erupted from the paper, only to be torn apart by the pursuing figures with disturbing ease. Lightning split the sky, illuminating their attackers for a brief, terrifying moment. The creatures moved with jerky, unnatural motions, human-shaped but wrong in subtle ways that triggered instinctive revulsion. Their skin held an oily, purple-black sheen, and their eyes glowed with sickly yellow light. 4 Konoha shinobi, 7 of, whatever these things were. "Kakashi-sensei, what exactly are we dealing with here?" Naruto called out, hurling a brace of kunai that embedded themselves in one creature's chest with little effect. Kakashi's lone visible eye narrowed as he lifted his headband to reveal the Sharingan. "They don't have chakra networks," he stated with clinical detachment that barely masked his concern. "At least, not any configuration I've ever seen." A sound like shattering glass filled the air as one of the creatures suddenly appeared directly behind Sakura, moving faster than even Kakashi's Sharingan could track. Its arm extended impossibly, elongated fingers sharpened into foot-long talons. "Sakura!" Naruto screamed, knowing he was too far away to intercept. The creature's claws slashed downward, only to meet the resistance of Naruto's shadow clone that had materialized between them, taking the blow meant for Sakura. The clone burst into smoke, but not before Naruto felt the searing agony of those claws ripping through his doppelganger's chest. The sensation transferred to him through their connection, igniting something primal within his core. Time seemed to slow, the rain suspended in midair. Deep within the seal that imprisoned the nine-tailed fox, something ancient stirred. Not the Biju itself, but something else, something that had been dormant, hidden behind even the fox's immense presence. "Son of Sparda," whispered a voice that was neither the fox's nor his own. "Your blood remembers." Naruto felt his heartbeat accelerate, pounding against his ribcage like a war drum. Chakra flowed through his network, but it wasn't the familiar blue energy of his human heritage, nor the caustic red of the Nine Tails. This power burned crimson with threads of gold, like blood mixed with sunlight. The sensation was excruciating, and exhilarating. "What's happening to me?" he gasped, dropping to one knee as the energy surged through his body, rewriting something fundamental in his very cells. Kakashi's voice seemed distant, underwater. "Naruto, control it, whatever this is." The copy ninja's words cut off as he witnessed his student's transformation. Naruto's spine arched backward, a silent scream frozen on his lips. The crimson energy erupted from his skin like flames, casting ghastly shadows across the rain-soaked battlefield. Where the energy touched the rainfall, the droplets hissed and evaporated instantly. The attacking creatures halted their advance, yellow eyes fixed on Naruto with something akin to recognition and fear. Sparda. The word hissed from their lipless mouths in unison, the first sound they had made beyond animalistic growls. Through a haze of pain and newfound power, Naruto dimly registered the reaction. The name meant nothing to him, yet it resonated within that awakening part of himself like a forgotten melody. His fingernails lengthened into claws, harder than steel and sharp as razors. His canines extended into fangs that pressed against his lower lip. The whisker marks on his cheeks deepened and darkened, and his eyes, always bright blue, shifted to a luminous crimson threaded with gold. But the most startling change came from his back, where the fabric of his jacket tore as two protrusions formed beneath his shoulder blades. With a sound of rending flesh, a pair of wings erupted from his body, the right one composed of leathery, bat-like membrane stretched over demonic bone, the left formed of softly glowing, feather-like energy that shed motes of golden light. Asymmetrical, unbalanced, one demonic, one angelic. His team stared in shocked silence, weapons half raised, uncertain if the person before them was still their comrade. The creatures showed no such hesitation. Recognizing an existential threat, they attacked as one, abandoning their previous targets to focus entirely on Naruto. Something cold and calculating took over Naruto's consciousness. A battle instinct beyond anything his ninja training had installed. His body moved with liquid grace, every motion precise and devastating. He sidestepped the first attacker's lunge with contemptuous ease, his clawed hand plunging through its chest and emerging with something pulsating and dark clutched in his fingers. The creature disintegrated into ash with an unearthly wail. "Not human," Naruto murmured, his voice overlaid with a resonant harmonic that had never been present before. "Demons." The word came to him unbidden, knowledge surfacing from some hereditary memory awakening in his blood. These weren't corrupted humans or some new Kekkei Genkai, they were entities from beyond the human realm. The remaining 6 demons circled warily, their movements now coordinated like predators assessing dangerous prey. One feinted left while another attacked from behind. Naruto's wings flared in response, the demonic wing deflecting claws with its armored edge while the angelic wing flashed with blinding light, forcing the demons to shield their sensitive eyes. What is this power? Naruto wondered aloud as crimson energy coalesced around his right arm, solidifying into a spectral blade of pure energy. The weapon felt natural in his hand, an extension of his will rather than a physical tool. With his next breath, he was among the demons, the energy blade evening through them with terrifying efficiency. Each strike was precisely calculated for maximum damage, exploiting weaknesses he somehow instinctively knew. Where one demon proved more resilient, he adjusted his approach without conscious thought, switching from slashing attacks to piercing thrusts that targeted vital points. Within moments, 6 more piles of ash drifted away on the rain-heavy wind. The forest fell silent save for the steady drumming of rainfall and the heavy breathing of the Konoha ninja. Naruto stood alone in the clearing, the crimson energy still dancing across his skin like living flame. The spectral blade dissipated back into his body as he turned slowly to face his team. Sakura took an involuntary step backward, hand rising to cover her mouth. Sai's expression remained neutral, but his fingers tightened around his brush, ready to defend if necessary. Only Kakashi held his ground, Sharingan eye studying Naruto with intense focus. "Naruto," Kakashi asked cautiously, "are you still with us?" The question penetrated the haze of power and battle lust. Naruto blinked, awareness returning to his transformed eyes. He looked down at his clawed hands, then reached over his shoulder to touch the wings that had erupted from his back. I think I'm okay," he managed, though his voice still carried that strange dual-toned quality. It feels like it's always been part of me. Just sleeping." He took a step toward his friends, then swayed as the adrenaline ebbed and exhaustion crashed over him. The crimson energy flickered and began to recede, his features gradually returning to normal. The wings dissolved into particles of light and shadow that dissipated into the night air. Kakashi moved with blinding speed, catching Naruto before he collapsed. "Mission parameters have changed," he stated flatly. "We're returning to Konoha immediately. But the escort mission," Sakura began, "is no longer our priority." Kakashi cut her off, his tone brooking no argument. "What just happened changes everything. Those weren't human enemies, and this," he glanced down at the unconscious Naruto, "wasn't the Nine Tails chakra." "Then what was it?" Sai asked, his artist's eye having captured details the others might have missed. I've studied all of Konoha's records on Jinchuriki. None mention transformations like that. Kakashi adjusted Naruto's weight against his shoulder. That's precisely why we need to get back. Because if it wasn't the Nine Tails. He left the implication hanging in the rain-heavy air. Then who, or what, was awakening within Uzumaki Naruto? 3 days later, in a sterile hospital room that reeked of antiseptic and monitoring jutsu, Naruto opened his eyes to the concerned face of Tsunade Senju. The Hokage's honey-brown eyes narrowed as she checked his pupillary response with a small penlight. "Welcome back to the land of the living, brat," she said, her gruff tone belying her relief. "You've been unconscious for 72 hours. Naruto blinked away the spots from the bright light, his throat feeling like sandpaper. "Water," he croaked. Shizune appeared at his bedside with a glass, helping him take small sips. The cool liquid was heavenly against his parched throat. "What happened?" he asked once he could speak properly. "Did we complete the mission? Is everyone okay?" "Your team is fine," Tsunade assured him, making notes on his chart. "As for the mission, it was aborted in favor of getting you back here before you either died or transformed again." The memories came rushing back, the strange enemies. The surge of unfamiliar power, the wings that had erupted from his back. Naruto's hand flew to his chest, feeling for changes, but found only his own familiar heartbeat. That power, it wasn't the Nine Tails. Was it? He asked quietly. Tsunade exchanged a glance with Shizune before responding. "No, we've had Yamanaka scan your seal. The fox is still contained, though. It's been unusually agitated since your return." She pulled up a chair and sat beside his bed, her expression uncharacteristically somber. "Naruto, we need to talk about your parents." "My parents?" The subject change gave him whiplash. What do they have to do with this? Potentially everything. Tsunade's fingers drummed against her knee, a rare tell of her unease. "What do you know about your father?" "The fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze," Naruto replied automatically. He'd learned the truth after mastering Sage Mode, though few in the village knew of his heritage. "And my mother was Kushina Uzumaki. The previous Nine Tails Jinchuriki." "That's what we all believed," Tsunade said carefully. "And it's partly true. Minato raised you as his own after your mother died in childbirth. But Kakashi's report, combined with the tests we've run while you were unconscious, they suggest a more complicated lineage." Naruto's heart hammered in his chest. "What are you saying?" Before Tsunade could answer, a commotion erupted in the hallway outside. Raised voices, the sound of something heavy hitting a wall, and then the door to Naruto's room burst open. A woman stood in the doorway, pointing what appeared to be a modified handgun directly at Tsunade's head. She was striking, maybe in her early 20s, with short dark hair, heterochromatic eyes, one blue, one reddish-brown, and dressed in what looked like combat gear unlike any shinobi outfit Naruto had seen. Strapped to her back was a large missile launcher, and various other weapons adorned her person. "Step away from him," the woman ordered, her voice hard as steel. Slowly, Tsunade didn't flinch, merely raising an eyebrow at the intrusion. "You have approximately 3 seconds to lower that weapon before I show why." "Oh, you exactly why they call me the legendary sucker, because when I hit you, all your luck runs out." The standoff crackled with tension until Naruto cleared his throat. Not to interrupt whatever this is, but who exactly are you?" he asked the newcomer. The woman's heterochromatic gaze shifted to him, her expression unreadable. "The name's Lady, and you've got a lot of explaining to do, kid." "Me?" Naruto spluttered indignantly. "You're the one who just kicked down my hospital door. And what kind of name is Lady, anyway?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. "It's the name I chose. And I'm here because something impossible happened 3 days ago. A surge of power that shouldn't exist in this world, demonic and angelic energy, mixed with human chakra." Her eyes narrowed. Sparda's power. That name again. The same one the demons had hissed before attacking. "Sparda," Naruto repeated, the word feeling strangely right on his tongue. "Who is that?" Lady lowered her weapon fractionally, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You really don't know, do you?" She holstered the gun in a smooth motion. "Sparda was a demon knight who rebelled against his own kind 2,000 years ago, sealing away the demon Emperor Mundus and protecting the human world. He later fell in love with a human woman named Eva and had twin sons, Dante and Virgil. What does this fairy tale have to do with Naruto? Tsunade demanded, though her posture had relaxed slightly. Lady's mismatched eyes never left Naruto's face. Because the energy signature I track, Ed here is consistent with Sparda's bloodline, but with an impossible variation. And because when I arrived in your village, I found sophisticated demonic wards integrated into your defensive barrier system, wards that could only have been created by someone with intimate knowledge of demonic power. She took a step closer to Naruto's bed. The fourth Hokage didn't just seal the nine-tailed fox inside you, did he? He sealed your true nature along with it. Tsunade sighed heavily, pinching the bridge of her nose. I was about to explain this when you so rudely interrupted. She fixed Lady with a stern look. But since you seem to know more about these matters than we do, perhaps you'd care to enlighten us both. Lady crossed her arms, leaning against the wall. I'm a devil hunter. I track and eliminate demonic threats to the human world. 3 days ago, my equipment detected an energy surge unlike anything I've encountered before. Demon energy mixed with something else, something almost divine. I traced it here, to him. She nodded toward Naruto. And you think I'm, what? Related to this Sparda person? Naruto asked incredulously. I think you're his son, Lady replied bluntly. A third son no one knew existed. The room fell silent as the implications settled over them. Naruto stared at his hands, remembering how the crimson energy had flowed through them, how natural the transformations had felt despite their alienness. That's impossible, he finally said, though without conviction. My mother was Kushina Uzumaki. Everyone says I look just like my father, Minato Namikaze. Minato was your father in every way that matters, came a new voice from the doorway. Kakashi stood there, orange book conspicuously absent for once. He raised you as his own after your mother died. But he wasn't your biological father. Naruto's world tilted on its axis. You knew, all this time. Kakashi stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. I suspected. There were inconsistencies in the official story, times when Kushina was away from the village during her pregnancy, secretive meetings with individuals who weren't in any of our records. His visible eye crinkled with sympathy. Minato never spoke of it directly, but the night of the Nine Tails attack, he said something I've never forgotten. He said the sealing was necessary to protect you not just from the fox, but from your father's enemies. If what you're saying is true, Tsunade interjected, addressing Lady, then why would a legendary demon knight impregnate a human woman and then abandon his child? Lady's expression darkened. Sparda had powerful enemies in the demon world. After he betrayed his kind, many sought revenge, not just against him, but against anyone he cared for. His sons were targeted repeatedly. If he had another child, keeping that child's existence secret would be the only way to ensure their safety. And the sealing? Naruto asked, trying to process everything. Why would why would Minato seal away this heritage along with the Nine Tails? Kakashi moved closer to Naruto's bedside. Think about it. A newborn with the blood of a legendary demon Nig. HT and the most powerful Biju sealed inside him. The power would have been too much for an infant's body to handle. The seal was designed to gradually integrate both energies as you matured and developed the strength to contain them. But something accelerated the process, Lady added. Those demons you encountered, they shouldn't have been able to detect you if the seal was working properly. Something changed. Naruto's mind raced, connecting dots. The war, he realized. During the 4th Great Ninja War, Kurama, the Nine Tails, and I became true partners. The seal changed fundamentally when I took control of his chakra. Tsunade nodded slowly, and in doing so, you may have inadvertently weakened whatever was suppressing your other heritage. Which explains why you're suddenly showing signs of awakening. Lady concluded, and why demons are starting to take notice. Naruto swung his legs over the side of the bed, ignoring Tsunade's protests. I need to see for myself. I need to feel that power again. Not without preparation, Lady countered sharply. Demonic power isn't like chakra. It responds to emotion, to will, to bloodlust. Without training, you could lose yourself to it, become something you never intended to be. Then teach me, Naruto challenged, blue eyes meeting her mismatched ones without flinching. If I am what you say, this third son of Sparda, then I need to understand what that means. What I am. Lady studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she gave a curt nod. Fine, but not here. We'll need space, privacy, and probably a lot of property insurance. Quote, despite everything, Naruto found himself grinning. I know just the place. Training Ground 44, better known as the Forest of Death, lived up to its ominous reputation even in broad daylight. Massive trees blocked much of the sunlight, creating a perpetual twilight beneath the canopy. The sounds of dangerous wildlife echoed through the undergrowth, punctuated by the occasional distant scream of some unfortunate creature becoming another's meal. Naruto stood in a small clearing, dressed in his standard orange and black outfit minus the jacket, It had been destroyed during his transformation. Lady circled him slowly, assessing his stance with critical eyes. Demon power and angelic grace, she murmured, more to herself than to him. I've never seen both in one being before. Theoretically, they should cancel each other out, yet in you, they coexist, Naruto finished. Like the Nine Tails and me. Speaking of which, can you communicate with it? Lady asked, pausing her circuit. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward on the familiar presence of Kurama. The massive fox lay curled in his mindscape, one eye cracked open to regard him warily. So you finally discovered the truth, Kid, Kurama rumbled, his deep voice resonating through Naruto's consciousness. You knew? Naruto asked, not entirely surprised. The fox shifted, Nine Tails swaying behind him. I suspected. Your chakra always had impurities. Energies that weren't human, weren't Biju. When your so-called father sealed me inside you, he did something else. Say too, something even I couldn't fully perceive from within the seal. Did you know Sparda? A low growl vibrated through his mindscape. Know him, not personally, but all Biju know of him. He as ancient even when the Sage of Six Paths walked these lands. Some say the Sage and Sparda once fought side by side against a common enemy. Naruto's eyes snapped open, returning to the physical world where Lady waited patiently. Kurama, the Nine Tails, says Sparda and the Sage of Six Paths might have been allies. Lady raised an eyebrow, clearly not having expected useful information. Interesting. The timelines would match. After Sparda sealed away Mundus, he spent centuries wandering the human world, protecting it from demonic incursions. So how do I access this power? Naruto asked, eager to move forward. Last time, it just erupted when my friends were in danger. Demonic power responds to strong emotions, Lady explained, drawing one of her handguns and checking it methodically. Particularly anger, fear, and the desire to protect. But untrained, it's like trying to direct a forest fire with a paper fan. She holstered the gun and reached for the missile launcher on her back. So we're going to create a controlled situation where you feel threatened enough to trigger the transformation, but not so threatened that you lose control entirely. Naruto eyed the massive weapon warily. And how exactly? The whistling sound of the missile cutting through air gave him his answer. Instinctively, he leapt aside as the projectile impacted where he'd been standing, the explosion sending dirt and splinters in all directions. Are you insane? He shouted, rolling to his feet. Lady was already moving, firing her handguns with pinpoint accuracy. Probably, she admitted with a grim smile. But demon training isn't like ninja training. It's sink or swim. Naruto dodged the bullets, impressed despite himself at her marksmanship. She wasn't aiming to kill, each shot came close enough to graze him but never hit anything vital. The controlled danger was masterful. I need you angry, Naruto, she called out, reloading smoothly while in motion. I need you afraid. I need you desperate enough to reach for that power but disciplined enough not to let it consume you. There are better ways to motivate me than trying to blow me up. He protested, creating a shadow clone that she immediately dispatched with a well-placed shot. Lady paused, lowering her weapon slightly. Tell me, what drives you? What pushes you beyond your limits? The question caught him off guard. My precious people, protecting them, living up to their expectations, keeping my promises. Noble, she acknowledged, but right now, your precious people are in danger from something you don't understand. The demons that attacked you and your team, they're just the beginning. Once word spreads in the demon world that a third son of Sparda exists, especially one with angelic blood. She left the implication hanging, but Naruto understood. He would become a target, and by extension, so would everyone he cared about. Again, he said, squaring his shoulders. But this time, don't hold back. A rare smile flickered across Lady's face. I never do. What followed was the most grueling training session of Naruto's life. Lady was relentless, exploiting every opening, attacking from unexpected angles. Using the environment against him. She moved with a grace that belied her human appearance, each action economical yet devastating. Hours passed in a blur of explosions, gunfire, and increasingly desperate evasions. Naruto called upon every ninja technique in his arsenal, shadow clones, Rasengan, even Sage Mode, but Lady countered each with specialized weapons and tactics clearly designed for combating supernatural threats. Exhaustion began to take its toll. Cuts and bruises accumulated across his body, healing slower than usual as his chakra reserves depleted. Still, the demonic power remained elusive, responding with occasional flickers but never the full transformation from days earlier. It's not working, Naruto panted, hands on his knees as he caught his breath during a brief respite. Maybe it was a one-time thing, or maybe you're wrong about me entirely. Lady approached him, holstering her weapons. Sweat beaded on her brow, the only indicate ion that their prolonged battle had affected her at all. Or maybe you're fighting it, she suggested, stopping just out of arm's reach. Part of you is afraid of what you might become if you embrace this power. The observation hit uncomfortably close to home. I've spent my whole life being seen as the demon inside me, Naruto admitted quietly. Finding out I might actually be part demon. Quote, being demon-blooded doesn't make you evil, Lady said, her voice softening fractionally. Believe me, I know the difference between demons and monsters. I've hunted both. Something in her tone made Naruto look up sharply. You speak from experience. A shadow passed behind her mismatched eyes. My father was human, but his obsession with demonic power transformed him into something worse than many true demons have encountered. It's not blood that determines who you are, it's choice. The simple truth of her words resonated with Naruto's own philosophy. Hadn't he always believed that a person's actions defined them, not their origins or the labels others placed upon them? One more try, he decided, straightening. But this time, I won't fight what's inside me. I'll work with it, like I learned to work with Kurama. Lady nodded and stepped back, drawing her weapons once more. Remember, demonic power responds to will. Your father Sparda was legendary not just for his strength but for his indomitable will. If you're truly his son, that same quality lives in you. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward. Beyond Kurama's familiar presence, he searched for that other energy, the Kree. MSON power threaded with gold that had awakened during the battle. Instead of trying to force it to the surface, he invited it, acknowledging it as part of himself. Son of Sparda, asterisk that strange Voic. He whispered again from the depths of his being. Son of Eva, heir to both shadow and light. Asterisk. His eyes snapped open, now glowing crimson with threads of gold. Eva, he breathed, the name feeling right on his tongue. My mother's name was Eva. Lady's eyes widened fractionally. Eva was the human woman Sparda fell in love with, the mother of Dante and Virgil. If she was your mother too, then they're my half-brothers. Naruto finished, the revelation sending a jolt through his system. He had family, blood relations beyond the bonds he'd formed in Konoha. The thought catalyzed something within him. The crimson energy began to flow through his body, not in the painful eruption of his first transformation but in controlled currents that enhanced rather than overwhelmed. His senses sharp. Ned dramatically. He could hear Lady's heartbeat, smell the gunpowder residue on her clothes, see the individual dust motes dancing in the forest air. His nails lengthened into claws, and he felt his canines extend into fangs. The whisker marks on his cheeks deepened, becoming more pronounced. But unlike before, he remained fully conscious and aware, observing the changes with fascination rather than fear. The wings, Lady prompted. Watching intently. Can you manifest them consciously? Naruto focused on the memory of those appendages, one demonic, one angelic, and the sensation of freedom they had granted him. A pressure built between his shoulder blades, painful but not unbearable. With a sound of tearing fabric, the wings erupted from his back once more, asymmetrical yet somehow perfectly balanced. He flexed them experimentally, marveling at how naturally they responded to his thoughts. With a single powerful beat, he launched himself skyward, breaking through the forest canopy into the open air above. The sensation was indescribable, a freedom beyond even what his ninja abilities had granted him. Lady followed his ascent with her eyes, a complicated expression crossing her face. Definitely Sparda's son, she murmured, but something more too. Naruto hovered above the treetops, the crimson energy swirling around him like a protective aura. Experimentally, he reached out with his right hand, willing the energy to condense as it had during the battle. The spectral blade materialized, its edge humming with power. "This feels right," he called down to Lady. "Like I'm finally complete." "Don't get cocky," she warned, though there was a hint of approval in her tone. "You've barely scratched the surface of what you might be capable of. And you still need to learn Entral, how to access this power at will and how to suppress it when necessary." Naruto descended slowly, the wings beating steadily to control his landing. As his feet touched the ground, he consciously willed the transformation to recede. The process was slower than the awakening but not uncomfortable, like exhaling after holding a deep breath. When it finished, he stood before Lady as his normal self once more. Albeit with his shirt in tatters from the wing's emergence. He felt different though, more aware of the dual nature that had always been part of him, hidden beneath layers of seals and secrets. "So," he said, a hint of his usual grin returning. "When do I get cool weapons like yours?" Lady snorted, holstering her guns. Sparda's descendants typically manifest their own weapons, drawn from their demonic essence. That energy blade you created is just the beginning. With training, you might develop something more substantial and permanent. Her expression turned serious again. "But first, we need to address the immediate threat. Those demons that attacked you weren't random encounters. They were scouts, foot soldiers sent to confirm rumors of a third Sparda heir. Now that you've awakened more fully, others will come. Stronger, smarter, more dangerous. Let them come," Naruto said with quiet confidence. "I've spent my life protecting this village and the people I care about. Finding out I'm part demon doesn't change that mission, it just gives me new tools to accomplish it." Lady studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "You remind me of someone," she said cryptically. "Someone else who never let his demonic heritage define him." "One of my brothers?" Naruto asked, curiosity piqued. "Dante," she confirmed, though with better manners, thankfully. "He's insufferable most of the time." Naruto laughed, the sound surprisingly normal after everything that had happened. "I'd like to meet him someday. Both of them, actually." "Be careful what you wish for," Lady warned. Though a ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Virgil might try to kill you on principle, and Dante will definitely try to stick you with his bar tab." Before Naruto could respond, a presence at the edge of the clearing drew both their attention. Hinata Hyuga stood partially concealed behind a massive tree trunk, her pale eyes wide with a mixture of concern and fascination. "Naruto-kun," she called softly, stepping into the open. "Hokage-sama sent me to check on your training." She was concerned about the explosions. "Hinata," Naruto exclaimed, suddenly acutely aware of his shredded shirt and disheveled appearance. "How long have you been watching?" "Long enough," she replied, her gaze drifting to where his wings had been. There was no fear in her expression, only wonder. "I saw your transformation. It was beautiful." Lady raised an eyebrow at this unexpected reaction. "You're not frightened by what he is?" Hinata shook her head firmly. "Naruto-kun has always had light inside him, even when everyone else saw only darkness. If he carries both demonic and angelic blood, that just means he has the strength to balance both, just as he's always balanced his own nature with the 9 tails." Her simple faith struck Naruto deeply. While he'd worried about how his precious people might react to his true heritage, Hinata had accepted it without hesitation, saying the beauty where others might find only monstrosity. "Thank you," he said softly. A delicate blush colored Hinata's cheeks, but her gaze remained steady. "The Hokage has called a special council meeting. She requests both your presences immediately." Lady frowned. A council meeting about Naruto's heritage. That seems unwise. The fewer people who know about his connection to Sparda, the safer he'll be. It's not about that, Hinata explained, her expression growing troubled. It's about the attacks. There have been 3 more incidents in Fire Country since your team's encounter, civilians found. She hesitated, clearly disturbed by what she needed to report. Found drained of blood and life energy. The survivors described creatures matching what you fought. Naruto and Lady exchanged grave looks. It's starting already, Lady said grimly. The demons are establishing a foothold in this world. Then we need to stop them, Naruto stated with simple determination. Whatever I am, Uzumaki, Namikaze, or Sparda, I won't let innocent people suffer. As they gathered their equipment and prepared to return to the village, Naruto paused, looking back at the scarred clearing he'd begun to embrace his true nature. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with dangers he was only beginning to comprehend. But for the first time, he felt a connection to his origins, to the blue D that flowed in his veins and the dual heritage that made him unique. Son of Sparda, son of Eva, inheritor of both demonic and angelic power. But still, at his core, Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf. With newfound resolve, he turned and followed Lady and Hinata back toward the village, ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 1 End Chapter 2, Devil's Advocate. Morning light spilled through the Hokage Tower windows, painting sharp rectangles across the polished floor. Naruto sat with uncharacteristic stillness, his mind still processing the revelations of the previous day. Across from him, Lady leaned against the wall, arms crossed, mismatched eyes scanning the faces of those assembled with clinical detachment. Tsunade's office had never felt so crowded. The Hokage herself sat behind her desk, fingers steepled before her face. Shizune stood at her right hand, while Kakashi occupied the corner near the window, orange book absent for once. Shikamaru Nara slouched in a chair, looking simultaneously bored and intensely focused. By the door, 2 Anbu operatives maintained their silent vigil, masks betraying nothing of their thoughts. Let me get this straight, Tsunade finally broke the silence. Amber eyes fixed on Lady. You're claiming that not only is Naruto part demon, but he's the son of some legendary demon knight who lived thousands of years ago. Lady pushed away from the wall with fluid grace. I'm not claiming anything. The evidence speaks for itself. She gestured toward Naruto. His transformation, the demonic attacks, the energy signature I tracked here, they all point to one conclusion. He carries Sparda's blood, along with angelic essence, Shikamaru added, his drawl not quite masking his intellectual interest. Which is apparently even rarer. Unprecedented, Lady corrected. Demons and angels are natural enemies. Their energies typically destroy each other on contact. The fact that both exist harmoniously within him. She shook her head, leaving the implication hanging. Naruto shifted uncomfortably under the collective scrutiny. Look, I don't care about being special or unprecedented. I just want to understand what's happening to me, and how to control it before anyone else gets hurt. Tsunade's expression softened fractionally. And that's why we're here, brat. But there are wider implications we need to address. She turned to Kakashi. You said Minato knew about this. The copy ninja nodded slowly. Not everything, perhaps, but enough. The seal he created was masterful. It contained both the 9 tails and suppressed Naruto's non-human heritage, gradually allowing both to integrate with his system as he matured. A seal that complex would require knowledge beyond standard fuinjutsu, Shikamaru observed. Even for the 4th Hokage. Lady's lips thinned. Your 4th Hokage wasn't working alone. The demonic wards integrated into your village's barrier system match patterns found in other locations connected to Sparda. He had help, probably from Sparda himself or someone trained by him. Silence fell as they absorbed this revelation. The idea that Konoha's legendary 4th Hokage had collaborated with a demon knight from another realm seemed almost too fantastic to believe. Yet the evidence before them, Naruto's transformation, the demonic attacks, Lady's specialized knowledge, all pointed toward an uncomfortable truth. So what happens now? Naruto asked, breaking the contemplative silence. These demons that are showing up, they're coming for me, right? Lady nodded grimly. Once word spreads in the demon world that a 3rd son of Sparda exists, you'll become a prime target. both for those seeking to destroy Sparda's bloodline and those hoping to use your power for their own ends. Which means Konoha is at risk as well, Tsunade concluded, her expression hardening. We need to prepare defenses, establish protocols for identifying and combating these entities. Traditional shinobi techniques won't be effective against true demons, Lady warned. Chakra-based attacks might slow them down, but they don't operate by the same rules as living creatures from this realm. Then we adapt, Kakashi stated simply. It wouldn't be the first time shinobi have faced threats beyond our understanding. Lady unstrapped one of her specialized handguns, placing it on Tsunade's desk. These are modified to channel a specific type of energy that disrupts demonic physiology. I can help your weapons specialists develop similar countermeasures, but it will take time. Time we may not have, Shikamaru pointed out, his lazy posture belying the sharp calculations visibly happening behind his eyes. If these attacks are increasing in frequency, we need a more immediate solution, Tsunade agreed, turning to Naruto. How much control do you have over these new abilities? Naruto exchanged a glance with Lady before answering. Some. I can trigger the transformation consciously now, but it's still new. Raw. He flexed his fingers, remembering the sensation of claws emerging from his fingertips. Lady says I've barely scratched the surface of what I might be capable of. Then your training takes priority, Tsunade decided. Kakashi, coordinate with Lady to establish a specialized training regimen. Shikamaru, I want you to review all reports of unusual attacks or sightings throughout Fire Country, look for patterns. Potential nests or gateways these creatures might be using. What about the village elders and council? Shizune asked quietly. They'll want to be informed about a potential threat of this magnitude. Tsunade's expression darkened. We tell them about the demonic incursions, but Naruto's heritage remains classified for now. The fewer people who know he's connected to Sparda, the better. It won't stay secret forever, Lady cautioned. Demons have ways of tracking bloodlines, and once they confirm what he is, we'll deal with that when it comes, Tsunade cut her off. For now, our priority is preparing Naruto and Konoha's defenses. As the meeting continued, detailing security measures and training schedules, Naruto found his thoughts drifting. All his life, he'd wondered about his parents, creating fantasies about who they might have been. Learning that Minato Namikaze, his hero, the fourth Hokage, was his adoptive father had been earth-shattering enough. But this was beyond anything he could have imagined. Part demon, part angel, son of a legendary knight who had turned against his own kind to protect humanity. What did that make him? The sun had barely crested the eastern horizon when Naruto arrived at Training Ground 7 the following morning. Dew still clung to the grass, and mist hung between the trees, giving the familiar location an ethereal quality that seemed oddly appropriate given recent revelations. Lady was already there, methodically checking her arsenal of specialized weapons. She had exchanged her MBAT outfit for something more practical, dark pants, boots, and a fitted top that allowed freedom of movement while still accommodating her impressive array of weaponry. You're early, she noted without looking up from her inspection. Eager to get started, Naruto shrugged, settling cross-legged on the grass nearby. Couldn't sleep. Too many thoughts. That's understandable. Lady holstered the weapon she'd been checking and finally met his gaze. Finding out you're not entirely human tends to cause existential crises. Her matter-of-fact tone startled a laugh from him. You make it sound so normal. In my line of work, normal is relative. A ghost of a smile touched her lips before vanishing. But for what it's worth, I've known people with demon blood who were more human in their actions than many natural-born humans. Quote, Naruto studied her profile, noting the tension in her jaw, the way her mismatched eyes seemed to look inward at some painful memory. You mentioned your father yesterday, he ventured carefully. Lady's expression closed like a steel trap. We're not here to discuss my family history. She stood in a fluid motion, adjusting her weapon harness. Today we focus on weaponry. Specifically, your ability to manifest weapons from your own demonic energy. Recognizing the deflection, Naruto decided not to push. He rose to his feet, brushing grass from his pants. Like that sword I created during our training. Similar, but more substantial. Lady circled him critically, assessing his stance. The spectral blade was a reflex, raw power given rudimentary shape by instinct. True devil arms are extensions of your will, permanent manifestations of your power and personality. And I just think really hard about a weapon? Naruto asked skeptically. Lady rolled her eyes. It's not about thinking. It's about feeling, about extending your essence beyond your physical form. She reached out, tapping his chest directly over his heart. The power comes from here, not here. Her finger moved to tap his forehead. The brief contact sent an unexpected jolt through Naruto's system, like static electricity but warmer. He blinked in surprise, noticing a flicker of something, perhaps equally unexpected, cross Lady's face before her professional mask slid back into place. Right, he said, clearing his throat. Feeling, not thinking. That I can do. Start with the transformation, Lady instructed, stepping back to give him space. But this time, focus on the energy flow. Direct it, don't just let it happen. Naruto nodded, closing his eyes to concentrate. He reached inward, past the familiar warmth of his chakra, past even Kurama's simmering presence, to that newfound crimson power threaded with gold. Instead of simply allowing it to surge forth, he visualized it as a current he could channel, direct, and shape. The transformation began more gradually than before. Heat spread through his veins, but controlled rather than overwhelming. Senses sharpened incrementally, the scent of morning dew growing more pronounced, the distant sounds of village life becoming clearer. He felt his canines lengthen into fangs, his nails hardening into claws. When he opened his eyes, he knew without seeing that they had shifted to that crimson gold hue Lady had described. The whisker marks on his cheeks felt deeper, more pronounced. Good, Lady approved, circling him with a critical eye. Now for the wings. Naruto concentrated on the sensation he'd experienced before, the pressure between his shoulder blades, the feeling of something unfurling from within. The transformation was smoother this time, less painful. The asymmetrical wings, one demonic leather, one angelic light, extended from his back with only a minimal tearing of fabric, thanks to the modified jacket he now wore with slits built into the design. Lady nodded, satisfied. Now for the weapon. Focus on your right hand. Imagine the energy condensing, taking solid form. Force a specific shape. Let it reflect your true nature. Naruto extended his right arm, palm upward. He concentrated on the crimson energy, willing it to gather above his hand. Unlike his previous attempt where he had instinctively created a blade, this time he allowed the energy to take whatever form resonated most strongly with his essence. The power swirled and condensed, particles of sun and gold light coalescing into a solid object. What materialized wasn't the simple energy blade from before, but something more substantial, a katana-like sword with a blade that shifted between crimson and deep orange. Like captured flames, the hilt was wrapped in material that resembled black leather but felt alive somehow, responsive to his grip. Golden symbols etched themselves along the blade, characters in a language Naruto didn't recognize yet somehow understood on an instinctive level. Maelstrom, he whispered, the name coming to him unbidden. Lady's eyes widened fractionally, impressive for a first manifestation. Most devil arms take years to develop that level of detail and stability. Naruto hefted the weapon, marveling at how perfectly it balanced in his hand. Though solid to the touch, it retained a subtle glow, as if the metal itself was merely a container for the energy within. He executed an experimental swing, the blade cutting through the air with a sound like distant wind. It feels right, he said, unable to find better words. Like it's always been a part of me, just waiting to take form. In a way, it has been, Lady confirmed. Devil arms are manifestations of your inner power, your true nature given physical form. The fact that yours incorporates both demonic red and what appears to be angelic gold. She trailed off, studying the weapon with scholarly interest. Try channeling chakra through it. Naruto raised an eyebrow but did as instructed, allowing his familiar blue chakra to flow into the blade. The result was immediate and spectacular. The golden symbols flared brilliantly, and the edge of the blade became wreathed in flame-like energy that shifted between blue, crimson, and gold. Extraordinary, Lady murmured, a perfect integration of all three energy types. Quote, before Naruto could respond, a new voice interrupted from the edge of the training ground. So it's true. The rumors of a third son of Sparda weren't exaggerated after all. Lady spun toward the voice, weapons appearing in her hands with practiced speed. Naruto turned more slowly, maelstrom still glowing with tricolor energy. A woman stood watching them. From beneath the shadow of a large oak tree. She was striking. Tall and statuesque, with platinum blonde hair cascading past her shoulders and eyes the color of a summer sky. She wore a black leather outfit that left little to the imagination, accentuating her hourglass figure. Power radiated from her in subtle waves, not quite human but not overtly threatening either. Trish, Lady stated flatly, neither lowering her weapons nor firing them. What an unexpected surprise. The blonde woman, Trish, offered a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Lady, still playing with guns, I see. Her gaze shifted to Naruto, studying him with unsettling intensity. And you must be Naruto Uzumaki, or would you prefer Sparda now? Naruto kept Maelstrom at ready position, taking his cue from Lady's wary stance. Just Naruto is fine, and you are. A complication, Lady muttered before Trish could answer. Trish's smile widened fractionally. An old acquaintance of your brother Dante. And someone, with a vested interest in the sudden appearance of a third Sparda heir. She took a step forward, seemingly unconcerned by the weapons trained on her. Especially one with such unusual characteristics. There was something about this woman that set Naruto's instincts on edge, not exactly threatening, but dangerous in a way he couldn't quite define. The crimson energy within him stirred restlessly, recognizing something familiar yet different in her aura. She's a demon, he realized aloud, the knowledge surfacing from that newfound intuition. But not like the ones that attacked us. Full marks, Trish acknowledged with a sardonic little bow. Though, demon, is such a limited term. I prefer to think of myself as an independent contractor. Lady snorted derisively. Last I checked, you were working for Dante. Did something change, or are you here on his behalf? Information travels fast in certain circles, Trish replied, deliberately vague. Word of unusual power signatures. Demons gathering in unprecedented numbers, an energy flare that registered in all three realms simultaneously. She fixed Naruto with an appraising look. Naturally, interested parties wanted verification. What interested parties? Naruto asked directly, lowering Maelstrom slightly but not dismissing it. My supposed brother, or someone else. Trish's eyes gleamed with something that might have been approval. Sharp, I can see the family resemblance. Not physically, perhaps, but in attitude. She crossed her arms, leather creaking softly with the movement. Let's just say I'm here on behalf of multiple stakeholders, all of whom are very curious about how a third Sparda heir managed to remain hidden all these years, and why he's suddenly making such a dramatic debut. Lady stepped partially between them, her stance protective in a way that surprised Naruto. Curiosity can be dangerous, Trish. Especially when it draws attention to things better left in shadow. Too late for shadows, Trish countered smoothly. The demon world is already buzzing with rumors. Some say Eva had a third child before her death. Others claim Sparda himself reappeared briefly 2 decades ago. The or creative versions suggest experimentation with captured Sparda DNA. Her gaze fixed on Naruto again. Care to clarify which version is correct? Before Naruto could respond, a familiar presence roached from the direction of the village. Hinata emerged from the tree line, dressed in her standard mission gear, long indigo hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She faltered briefly upon saying the tense tableau before continuing forward with quiet determination. Naruto-kun, she greeted, pale eyes taking in his transformed state with that same acceptance she'd shown before. Lady San, her gaze moved to Trish, assessing the newcomer with more wariness. I don't believe we've met. We haven't, Trish confirmed, something like curiosity flickering across her perfect features as she studied Hinata. Interesting. Your eyes, they're not entirely human either, are they? Hinata stiffened slightly. The Byakugan is a Kekkei Genkei passed down through the Hyuga clan for generations. Is that what they tell you? Trish murmured, her tone suggesting she knew something more. Before she could elaborate, Lady interrupted sharply. Why are you here, Hinata? Is something wrong? The Hyuga heiress turned to her. Composure regained. Hokage-sama sent me to inform you that the council meeting has been moved up. The elders are insistent about addressing the recent attacks. La. Dai muttered something that sounded suspiciously like a curse. They were supposed to wait until we had more concrete information to present. Apparently there was another incident last night, Hinata explained, her expression grave. A merchant caravan was attacked near the border. There were no survivors, but a patrol found. She hesitated, glancing at Naruto as if uncertain whether to continue. Found what? He prompted gently. Strange markings at the scene, she finished reluctantly. Symbols carved into the earth and the bodies. The report says they resembled sealing arrays, but unlike any known fuinjutsu. Trish and Lady exchanged a loaded glance, some unspoken communication passing between them despite their apparent antagonism. Summoning circles, Trish stated flatly. They're trying to open a stable gateway. Which means we have less time than we thought, Lady added, holstering her weapons with swift efficiency. Naruto, we need to accelerate your training. If they already setting up summoning points throughout Fire Country, then more powerful demons will start coming through, he finished, the implications clear. How do we stop it? First, we attend this council meeting, Lady decided, her tone brooking no argument. They need to understand what they're truly facing. She cast a suspicious glance at Trish. Though I'm not sure bringing her along is wise. Trish smiled, all feline grace and barely veiled danger. On the contrary, if you're going to convince a room full of skeptical military leaders that demons are real and organizing against them, having a genuine article present might prove persuasive. Or it might cause a panic, Lady countered. I'll vouch for her, Naruto decided, surprising himself almost as much as the others. When Lady shot him an incredulous look, he shrugged. If she wanted to attack us, she would have. And we need all the information we can get. Trish's expression shifted subtly, something almost like respect flickering in her eyes. How refreshingly pragmatic. Perhaps you take after Virgil more than Dante after all. Naruto dismissed Maelstrom with a thought, the weapon dissolving back into party pleas of light that reabsorbed into his body. With another moment of concentration, he retracted his wings and allowed his more demonic features to recede, returning to his human appearance. Let's go, he said, heading toward the village with newfound determination. I want to know exactly what we're up against. The council chamber hummed with tense voices when they arrived. Tsunade sat at the head of the long table, face set in the carefully neutral expression Naruto recognized as her, dealing with political nonsense, mask. Around her sat the village elders, department heads, and clan representatives. Their conversations falling into uneasy silence as Naruto's group entered. More than a few eyebrows rose at Trish's appearance, both for her striking beauty and her obviously foreign attire. Naruto noticed several male council members doing double takes, while Tsunade's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Uzumaki, Elder Kaharu acknowledged with a stiff nod. We were just discussing the recent incidents. Attacks, Naruto corrected firmly, taking a seat opposite Tsunade. Not incidents. Deliberate attacks by non-human entities. A murmur rippled through the assembled shinobi. Homura, the other village elder, leaned forward with skepticism etched into the deep lines of his face. You expect us to believe these incursions are the work of supernatural creatures? Preposterous. More likely it's a new shinobi organization using unknown techniques. Is it preposterous? Lady challenged, remaining standing with her back to the wall, a position that gave her clear sightlines to all exits. Your own history is filled with Biju, a mortal ninja, and techniques that defy natural law. Is it really so difficult to accept that other realms might exist beyond your own? And who exactly are you to make such claims? Homura demanded. An expert in non-human threats, Tsunade interjected before Lady could respond. Someone with specialized knowledge we currently lack. And her. Kaharu gestured toward Trish, who had taken a position near the door, arms crossed casually. Trish offered a smile that held no warmth. Consider me a primary source. With deliberate showmanship, she extended her hand, allowing electricity to dance visibly between her fingers, not chakra-based lightning, but something darker, more primal. I believe the term you'd use is intelligence acid. The demonstration sent another wave of murmurs through the room. Hiyashi Hyuga activated his Byakugan briefly, his stoic expression faltering as he observed whatever his dojutsu revealed about Trish's true nature. She's not human, he stated flatly, pale eyes narrowing. Her chakra system, if it can be called that, is unlike anything I've ever witnessed. Correct, Trish acknowledged without embarrassment. Which makes me uniquely qualified to help you understand what you're facing. Tsunade raised a hand, silencing the growing commotion. Before we get sidetracked, let's focus on the immediate threat. Reports indicate 7 separate attacks in the past week, each progressively more organized and lethal. The symbols found at the latest scene suggest a larger pattern at work. She unrolled a map of Fire Country, marking each attack location with a red pin. When plotted geographically, the incidents form a distinct pattern, a 7-pointed star with Konoha at its center. Lady moved to the table, studying the map intently. It's a macroscale summoning array, she confirmed, the muscles in her jaw tightening. They're creating anchor points to stabilize a major portal. A portal to what? Shikaku Nara asked, his scarred face serious. The demon world, Trish supplied, pushing away from the wall to join them at the table. Or more specifically, a particular Regi. On of it associated with an old enemy of the Sparda bloodline. All eyes turned to Naruto, who shifted uncomfortably under the collective scrutiny. I only learned about this Sparda connection 2 days ago, he reminded them. I'm still figuring it out myself. Which brings us to a critical question, Kaharu interjected, her aged eyes sharp with suspicion. What exactly are you, Uzumaki Naruto? Because these attacks began immediately after your team reported your transformation. The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Naruto met the elder's gaze steadily, aware that his answer cool. D dramatically impacted how the village viewed him. He had spent his childhood ostracized for containing the 9 tails. How would Konoha react to learning he was part demon himself? I'm the same person I've always been, he said finally. His voice quiet but firm. A shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, son of Kushina Uzumaki, raised by Minato Namikaze as his own. He took a breath before continuing. But, I recently discovered that my biological father was someone, or something, else. A being named Sparda who apparently had both enemies and power beyond our normal understanding. Murmurs erupted around the table, some concerned, others speculative. Tsunade allowed them to continue for a moment before raising her hand for silence once more. Naruto's heritage is not the issue here, she stated with authority. The immediate threat to Konoha and Fire Country takes precedence. If these attacks are part of a pattern designed to open a portal to another realm, how do we disrupt it? Lady traced a finger along the map, connecting the marked attack sites. The summoning array requires all 7 anchor points to be active simultaneously. If we can disrupt even one, the entire working falls apart. We'd need to purify the ritual sites, Trish added, studying the map with professional interest. Break the connection to the demon world by removing the taint they've established. And how exactly does one purify such a site? Hiyashi asked skeptically. Trish and Lady exchanged a glance that suggested neither particularly trusted the other, yet both recognized the necessity of cooperation. There are several methods, Lady replied carefully. Some require specialized equipment or knowledge. Others, she glanced at Naruto, others might be accomplished through the right combination of energies. You mean me, Naruto realized, because I have both demonic and, the other thing, angelic essence, Trish confirmed, something like fascination creeping into her voice. Which, theoretically, should be perfect for cleansing demonic corruption, if you can control it properly. The implications hung in the air. Naruto was potentially both the cause of their current crisis and their best hope for resolving it. This is absurd, Elder Homura declared, pushing back from the table. We're discussing fairy tales and myths while real threats demand our attention. Angels, demons, Extial claimed the Sage of 6 Paths was an alien from the moon. Actually, Kakashi began from his position near the back wall, only to be silenced by a sharp look from Tsunade. Believe what you will, Lady stated coldly. But the deaths are real, and conventional shinobi tactics have proven ineffective against these enemies. If you prefer to bury your head in the sand while your people die, that's your choice. Homura's face flushed with anger, but before he could retort, the chamber door burst open. A Jonin messenger stood in the doorway, breathing heavily, his uniform torn and bloodied. Hokage-sama, we're under attack. The western gate. Creatures unlike anything. He stumbled forward, revealing a deep gash across his back that leaked a viscous purple substance along with blood. Tsunade was on her feet instantly, medical chakra already gathering around her hands. How many? What type? Dozens, the messenger gasped as the Hokage's healing chakra flowed into his wound. EY appeared from nowhere, tore through the outer guard posts like paper. Some look almost human, but others. He shuddered visibly. Others are monstrosities. Naruto exchanged glances with Lady and Trish, a grim understanding passing between them. The council meeting was over. Theory had given way to immediate reality. I need to get out there, he said, already moving toward the door. Lady fell into step beside him. Remember your training. Focus on control, not just power. I'm coming too, Trish declared, ignoring the suspicious looks cast her way. When Lady started to object, she raised an elegant eyebrow. You really want to turn down help from someone who knows demons inside and out? Fine, Lady conceded reluctantly. But if you betray us, you'll shoot me repeatedly, Trish finished with a sardonic smile. I know the drill. Tsunade's voice cut through their exchange. All available Jonin and Anbu to the western sector. Civilian evacuation protocols are now active. Medical teams, prepare for casualties. She fixed Naruto with an intense look. Be careful out there, brat. We still don't know your limits with these new abilities. Naruto nodded, determination set. Ting his features into harder lines than usual. I'll be fine, Ba-chan. It's the demons who should worry. As they rushed from the chamber, he was surprised to find Hinata keeping pace beside them, her Byakugan already activated. I can see them, she said quietly, veins bulging around her pale eyes. They're breaking through in waves, each group stronger than the last. She hesitated, uncertain, tie flickering across her normally composed features. There's something strange about their chakra networks, if you can even call them that. They're like negative impressions of what chakra should be. Trish cast her a curious look. Your eyes can perceive demonic essence. Interesting. Most human sensory abilities can't distinguish the subtle variations. The Byakugan has always been able to see things others can't. Hinata replied simply, though something in her tone suggested Trish's earlier comment about her eyes not being entirely human had struck a chord. They emerged from the Hokage Tower into chaos. Distant explosions punctuated the air, and smoke rose from the direction of the western gate. Civilians streamed eastward, guided by Chunin assigned to evacuation duty. The acrid scent of burning buildings mixed with something else, something sulfurous and alien. Without conscious decision, Naruto reached for the crimson power within. The transformation came easier now, flowing through him like a familiar current. Claws, fangs, eyes shifting to that crimson gold hue, each change felt more natural than the last. The wings erupted from his back with minimal discomfort, one demonic leather, one angelic light. Stretching wide in preparation for flight. Lady checked her weapons with practiced efficiency while Trish cracked her knuckles, electricity dancing between her fingers with eager intensity. Head for the gate, Naruto instructed, feeling an unfamiliar but not unwelcome mantle of leadership settling on his shoulders. I'll survey from above and direct our efforts where they're most needed. Without waiting for acknowledgement, he launched himself skyward with a powerful beat of his asymmetrical wings. The village spread below him in a familiar patchwork, but marred by destruction along its western edge. From this height, he could see what ground-level observers could not. A writhing darkness gathering beyond the wall, punctuated by flashes of unnatural color and movement. Demons. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, clawing their way through what appeared to be a tear in reality itself, a jagged wound in the air that pulsed with malevolent energy. And they were organized. Not the mindless attackers his team had encountered in the forest, but a coordinated assault force with distinct types fulfilling specialized roles. Some smaller, insectoid demons scuttled ahead as scouts. Larger brutes with overlapping bone armor formed frontline shock troops. Behind them, more humanoid figures directed the chaos with calculated precision. An invasion force. Naruto tucked his wings and dove toward the largest concentration of defenders. A mixed group of Anbu and Jonin fighting a desperate holding action at the shattered remains of the western gate. As he approached, he saw the toll the battle was already taking. Several shinobi lay wounded or worse, their conventional attacks proving minimally effective against opponents that ignored or rapidly regenerated from normally fatal wounds. He landed in their midst with enough force to crater the ground, his wings flaring outward in a display that momentarily halted the demonic advance. Both defenders and attackers paused, taking in his transformed appearance with varying degrees of shock or recognition. "Fall back and regroup," he ordered the Konoha forces, Maelstrom materializing in his right hand with a thought. "Let me handle the front line." To their credit, the battle-hardened shinobi adapted quickly to the extraordinary circumstances. An Anbu captain, bare mask splattered with something that definitely wasn't human blood, gave a curt nod before signaling his squad to establish a secondary perimeter. Freed from worry about friendly fire, Naruto turned his full attention to the demons pressing through the ruined gate. Maelstrom hummed in his grip, eager for battle, its blade shifting between crimson and gold as if responding to his intent. "Come on then," he challenged, settling into a ready stance that felt instinctively right. "Let's see what you're made of." The first wave charged as one, misshapen creatures with too many limbs and not enough restraint. Naruto met them with precise, devastating strikes, Maelstrom cleaving through demonic flesh with far more effectiveness than any conventional weapon had shown. Where the blade touched, the creatures didn't just take damage, they disintegrated, their essence dispersing in flashes of light. Fighting felt different in this form. His body moved with liquid grace, each action flowing into the next with perfect economy of motion. Instincts he'd never known he possessed guided his movements, identifying weaknesses in demonic anatomy and exploiting them with surgical precision. A larger demon, something resembling a grotesque fusion of man and scorpion, charged through the ranks of its lesser brethren, massive pincers snapping at Naruto's head. He ducked beneath the attack, Maelstrom slicing upward to sever one appendage completely. The creature screeched in pain, black ichor spraying from the wound. "They can be hurt," he called back to the watching shinobi. "Aim for joints and eyes." And fire techniques seem more effective than physical attacks. As if to demonstrate, a massive fireball roared past him, engulfing a cluster of smaller demons in purifying flame. Sasuke Uchiha landed beside him, Sharingan spinning. As he assessed the transformed appearance of his longtime rival. "Interesting new look, Dobi," he commented dryly, hands already forming seals for another jutsu. "Planning to explain what the hell is going on?" "Long story," Naruto grunted, parrying a strike from a sword-wielding demon that looked disturbingly human apart from its gray skin and glowing yellow eyes. "Short version, turns out I'm part demon royalty. These are distant relatives. Family reunions going great." Sasuke snorted, unleashing a precision lightning strike that paralyzed 3 advancing demons. "Of course you'd find I'd be even more of a freak than before." The familiar banter felt surreally normal amidst the chaos of battle. Naruto grinned, fangs glinting in the sunlight. "Jealous of the wings? They're pretty awesome." "Focus, idiot," Sasuke retorted, though there was no real heat in his voice. "We've got company." The flow of demons through the gate had changed, the lesser creatures pulling back to make way for something larger. Much larger. The air itself seemed to distort as a massive form began to squeeze through the dimensional tear, a towering monstrosity that combined aspects of dragon, insect, and something wholly alien. Its hide gleamed like oil-slick metal, and multiple eyes studded its elongated head, each glowing with baleful intelligence. "That," Naruto stated flatly, "is going to be a problem." "You think?" Sasuke replied, Sharingan tracking the creature's movement with wary respect. Before either could formulate a plan, twin streaks of movement converged on the emerging demon lord, Lady from one side, Trish from the other. Lady unleashed a barrage from her specialized firearms, each shot impacting with explosive force against the creature's armored hide. Simultaneously, Rish summoned a devastating lightning strike, electricity arcing from her hands to engulf the demon's head in crackling blue energy. The combined assault staggered the massive demon, forcing it back toward the portal. It roared in frustration and pain, the sound vibrating at a frequency that shattered windows throughout the district and drove several nearby shinobi to their knees, hands clamped over bleeding ears. "It's a grievous," Trish called out, gathering another charge of electricity between her hands. "Upper mid-tier demon lord. Vulnerable at the joint where the neck meets the torso. On it." Naruto launched himself skyward with a powerful beat of his wings, maelstrom raised for a decisive strike. As he approached, however, the demon lord fixed him with its multiple eyes, recon. Ishin and hatred burning in their depths. Sparda's spawn. Asterisk, it hissed, the words bypassing normal hearing to resonate directly in Naruto's mind. The master will be pleased when I deliver your heart. Massive pincers lashed out with shocking speed, catching Naruto mid-flight and slamming him back to earth with bone-crushing force. He impacted hard enough to leave a small crater, momentarily. Why stunned by the raw power behind the blow? Naruto-kun. Hinata's voice cut through his daze. She appeared at the edge of the crater, Byakugan active, her normally gentle features set in determined lines. It's creating some kind of energy field. I can see it gathering power for another attack. Sure enough, the Grievous had reared back, its multiple mouths opening to reveal swirling vortices of dark energy. The air around it warped and distorted as it prepared to unleash something catastrophic. Not happening, Naruto growled, pushing himself to his feet. Instinctively, he reached for a D.F.F. errant aspect of his newly awakened power, not the crimson demonic energy, but the golden angelic essence that balanced it. Light gathered around his left hand, coalescing into a second weapon, not a sword-like maelstrom, but a javelin-like spear of pure golden energy. Without conscious thought, he hurled it directly at the weak point Trish had identified, channeling his will and power into the projectile. The angelic weapon streaked through the air like a comet, trailing motes of golden light. It struck precisely where neck met torso, penetrating the demon lord's armored hide with surprising ease. The creature's attack died in its multiple throats, replaced by a screech of genuine agony as golden light spread from the impact point, fracturing its body from within. Now, Lady shouted, unleashing a specialized missile from her launcher. The projectile struck the weakened demon, detonating in a blast that combined conventional explosives with what appeared to be blessed elements, holy water or consecrated materials that reacted violently with demonic essence. The Grievous's form destabilized, cracks of golden light spreading across its massive body. With a final, earth-shaking roar, it collapsed in on itself, disintegrating into particles of darkness that dissipated in the midday sun. A cheer went up from the watching shinobi, but Naruto knew their victory was temporary at best. More demons continued to pour through the dimensional tear, smaller now but no less determined. We need to close that portal, he stated, regrouping with Lady, Trish, and the others. Agreed, Lady replied, reloading her weapons with practiced efficiency. But standard sealing techniques won't work on a dimensional breach like that. What about non-standard techniques? Hinata asked quietly, her Byakugan still active as she studied the pulsating tear. I can see the energy flow. It's similar to certain Hyuga sealing methods, but inverted. Trish gave her a sharp, evaluative look. You might be onto something. Many demonic rituals are corrupted versions of older, purer techniques. Naruto, Lady said decisively, your combined energies might be able to force the portal closed. Especially if focused through that angel weapon you just manifested. Worth a try, he agreed, summoning the golden javelin once more. It felt different from Maelstrom, lighter, keener, vibrating with a frequency that seemed to purify the very air around it. Cover me while I get close enough. Sasuke stepped forward, the Tomo in his Sharingan spinning lazily. I'll handle the perimeter. Nothing will get through to interrupt whatever you're planning. Hinata moved to his side. I'll guide you. My Byakugan can track the energy flows, I can tell you exactly where to strike. Trish and Lady exchanged a look before nodding in unison. We'll run interference, Trish decided, electricity crackling around her hands. Draw the heavier hitters away from your approach vector. With their roles established, they moved as a coordinated unit. Sasuke unleashed a devastating fire technique that carved a path through the lesser demons, while Trish and Lady split off to engage two larger Reits that had begun to emerge from the portal. Hinata stayed close to Naruto, her Byakugan tracking the subtle energy patterns invisible to normal sight. There, she directed as they neared the dimensional tear, pointing to a specific point where the distortion seemed most pronounced. The breach is anchored there, where the energies converge. If you can disrupt that nexus point. Naruto nodded, gathering both demonic and angelic power into the golden javelin. The weapon began to glow with increasing intensity, crimson energy spiraling around its golden core. Stand back, he warned. King aim at the spot Hinata had indicated. I'm not sure what this will do. Hinata retreated a few steps but kept her Byakugan focused on the target. A little to the left. Yes, there. That's the weakest point in the barrier between dimensions. Naruto drew back his arm, channeling every ounce of his mixed heritage into the throw. The javelin left his hand with tremendous force, trailing a comet tail of crimson and gold energy as it streaked toward the portal's anchor point. The impact was spectacular. Golden light exploded outward from the point of contact, followed by a shock wave of Mson energy that rippled through the dimensional tier. The portal seemed to fold in on itself, edges curling inward like burning paper, until it collapsed with a sound like reality itself sighing in relief. The sudden closure caught several demons mid-transit, their forms distorting grotesquely before disintegrating into particles of darkness. Those already through found themselves cut off from their source of power, making them vulnerable to the reinvigorated attacks of Konoha's defenders. Naruto staggered slightly, the expenditure of energy leaving him momentarily lightheaded. Hinata was at his side instantly, supporting him with gentle strength. It worked, she said, a rare smile brightening her features. The breach is sealed completely. I can't detect any trace of the connection to the other realm. Before he could respond, a slow clapping sound drew their attention. A figure stood atop the village wall, silhouetted against the afternoon sun, a tall man in a red coat, white hair catching the light. Even at this distance, the resemblance to the figure in Trish's locket was unmistakable. Not bad, kid, the stranger called down, his casual tone belying the impressive feat of having apparently observed the entire battle without being detected. Little flashy for my taste, but effective. Trish materialized beside them, her expression a complex mixture of exasperation and fondness. Dante, she acknowledged with a nod. Your timing is impeccable as always. I try. The man, Dante, replied with an exaggerated bow. He leapt from the wall, coat flaring dramatically as he descended, landing with casual grace a few yards from Naruto. Up close, the family resemblance was subtle but undeniable, something in the set of the jaw, the confident posture, the aura of barely restrained power. Crimson eyes met blue, one devil blood recognizing another. For a long moment, neither spoke, simply taking the measure of the other. So, Dante finally broke the silence, his tone deliberately light. Brother, gotta say, the whole glowing angel wing is a new one for the family portfolio. Mom never mentioned you. She died when I was born, Naruto replied quietly, still processing the reality of standing before his half-brother. At least, that's what I've been told. Something flickered behind Dante's casual facade, a shadow of old pain quickly masked. Yeah, sounds about right. Dear old dad was big on compartmentalizing. Probably thought he was protecting you. His eyes narrowed slightly, taking in Naruto's transformed state with professional assessment. And maybe he was. You're different. Not just devil blood, something else mixed in. Angelic essence, Trish supplied, watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Unprecedented in Sparda's lineage. Dante whistled low. No wonder the underworld's in an uproar. A Sparda heir with angel mojo. That's gonna ruffle some serious feathers. He circled Naruto slowly, his laid-back demeanor not quite concealing the predatory grace of a master devil hunter. Question is, what are you planning to do with all that fancy new power, little brother? The challenge was clear beneath the casual phrasing. Naruto met it directly, allowing his transformation to recede until he stood in his human form once more, blue eyes steady. Protect my home, my precious people, fight against anything that threatens them. He gestured toward the village behind them, where recovery efforts were already underway. Same thing I've always done. The only difference is now I know more about why I can do the things I can do. Dante studied him for a long moment before a genuine smile broke through his practiced nonchalance. Good answer. He extended a hand. Welcome to the family, kid. It's a mess, but it's never boring. Naruto accepted the handshake, feeling a subtle resonance between their blood, a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. So you believe me, just like that? Let's just say I've got a nose for family. Dante replied cryptically. Besides, Only Sparda's blood could pull off that little light show you just did. His expression turned more serious. But this was just the opening act. Whoever orchestrated this attack won't stop here, especially now that they've confirmed your existence. Any idea who's behind it? Lady asked, joining them with weapons still at ready. Dante's expression darkened fractionally. Nothing concrete. But there are rumors. He shook his head. Need to verify a few things before jumping to conclusions. In the meantime, he clapped Naruto on the shoulder. You keep working on those fancy new powers. Something tells me you're gonna need every trick in the book before this is over. You're leaving. Naruto couldn't hide his disappointment. He had 1,000 questions about their shared heritage, about Sparda, about the demon world. Got a few leads to chase down, Dante confirmed, already backing away with casual grace. But don't worry, little brother. We'll have plenty of time for family bonding later. He winked at Trish. Keep an eye on him, would you? And try not to let Lady shoot him too much during training. Before anyone could respond, he executed an impossible backflip onto the village wall, offered a mock salute, and vanished from sight with supernatural speed. Is he always like that? Naruto asked Trish, still processing the whirlwind encounter. Pretty much, she confirmed with a small smile. Though he was on his best behavior for you. Usually there's more property damage involved. Lady holstered her weapons with a sigh. At least he confirmed your heritage. Not that there was much doubt after that display. Naruto nodded absently, his thoughts already turning to the implications of Dante's warning. This attack had been coordinated, purposeful, a test of Konoha's defenses and, perhaps more importantly, a confirmation of his existence and abilities. We need to accelerate my training, he decided, looking between Lady and Trish. Whatever's coming next will be worse. Hinata, who had remained quietly observant during the exchange with Dante, stepped forward with uncharacteristic boldness. I want to help, she stated firmly. My Byakugan could be useful in tracking demonic energy, and She hesitated briefly before continuing. I noticed something during the battle. When Naruto-kun used his angelic power, my eyes responded somehow, like there's a connection. Trish's eyes narrowed with sudden interest. Now that is fascinating. I'd wondered about those eyes of yours. She turned to Lady. The Byakugan clan might have celestial origins. It would explain their ability to perceive energy patterns beyond normal human perception. One mystery at a time, Lady replied, though. She couldn't entirely hide her own curiosity. For now, we focus on preparing for the next attack and strengthening Konoha's defenses. As they made their way back through the damaged western district, Naruto found himself drawn into conversation with village leaders about recovery efforts and security measures. Despite the extraordinary revelations of recent days, his fundamental priorities remained unchanged, protecting his home, caring for his people, standing against threats regardless of their origin. Son of Sparda he might be, but he was still Naruto Uzumaki of the Hidden Leaf first and foremost. The demonic heritage flowing through his veins was simply another tool in service to that identity, not a replacement for it. And as he worked alongside friends both old and new to secure the village against future attacks, he found a strange comfort in that certainty amidst the chaos of his rapidly changing world. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Grace and Fury. Dawn painted Konoha's Aya, stern horizon in watercolor hues of amber and rose, its gentle beauty belying the destruction visible along the village's western edge. 5 days had passed since the demonic incursion, and reconstruction efforts continued around the clock. Scaffolding embraced damaged buildings like skeletal exoskeletons, while teams of carpenters, stonemasons, and ninja with earth element affinities worked in coordinated shifts to restore the physical infrastructure. The psychological damage, however, proved less straightforward to repair. Naruto observed the activity from atop the Hokage monument, perched on the fourth stone head as he often did when seeking perspective. The irony wasn't lost on him, finding solace on the carved likeness of the man he'd always believed was his father, now understanding that relationship was more complicated than he'd imagined. Thought I might find you up here, a familiar voice remarked from behind him. He didn't turn, having sensed Lady's approach long before she spoke. His awareness had sharpened dramatically since his awakening, perception extending beyond ordinary human limitations. Just thinking, he replied, eyes still fixed on the village below. Lady settled beside him, legs dangling over the stone precipice. Unlike her usual combat attire, she wore simple black pants and a fitted gray top, though the holstered pistols at her hips suggested she never truly relaxed her guard. Dangerous pastime, she commented, the ghost of humor coloring her typically sardonic tone. Naruto's lips quirked upward. So everyone keeps telling me. They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching the village stir to life beneath them. Workers changed shifts at the reconstruction sites, merchants opened stalls in the undamaged sections of the market district. Academy students trudged sleepily toward their classes. Life persisted despite the recent upheaval, something Naruto found simultaneously comforting and strange. I don't understand how everyone can just continue, he finally said, gesturing toward the bustling streets. Demons attacked our village. Actual demons from another dimension. Shouldn't people be more? He struggled for the word. Panicked. Lady supplied. Hysterical. Running for the hills. Something like that. Lady leaned back on her palms, mismatched eyes scanning the horizon with practiced vigilance. Humans are remarkably adaptable, especially those already familiar with the supernatural. Your people have lived alongside chakra beasts, faced undead ninja, and witnessed techniques that defy natural law. What's one more impossible thing? When you put it that way, Naruto conceded. Besides, she continued, your Hokage was smart about the public messaging. Unknown enemies with unusual ability. Sounds less destabilizing than demonic invasion from another dimension. Naruto nodded absently, turning his gaze to his own hands. They looked ordinary enough. Calloused from years of training, but fundamentally human. Yet he'd seen them transform into something else, felt the power that could flow through them when he embraced his other heritage. Today we start phase 2 of your training, Lady stated, abruptly businesslike. You've shown you can access your demonic and angelic energies under duress. Now you need to learn precision control. Angelic energy, Naruto repeated, testing the phrase. It still sounds strange. I understand being part demon through Sparda, but where does the angel part come from? Lady's expression grew pensive. That's the mystery, isn't it? Sparda was a full-blooded demon, and conventional wisdom holds that Eva was entirely human. Yet something in your blood carries a celestial signature unlike anything I've encountered before. Could Eva have been? Naruto let the question hang. Part angel. Lady shook her head. Possible, but unlikely. Angels are even rarer visitors to the human realm than demons. Most demon hunters go their entire careers without encountering one. Then how? That's what we need to find out, she replied, rising to her feet with fluid grace. But first, training. The practice field is waiting, and so is your other instructor. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Other instructor. Lady's lips thinned slightly. Trish volunteered her expertise. Given her unique perspective on demonic abilities, I reluctantly agreed. You don't trust her, Naruto observed, standing to join her. I don't trust easily in general, Lady corrected. But in Trish's case, I know for certain she has multiple agendas. The question is which one currently takes priority. Naruto considered this as they descended from the monument. She knows Dante, my brother. That counts for something, right? Lady's laugh held little humor. Dante trusts too easily. Always has. It's both his greatest strength and his most exploitable weakness. She glanced at Naruto with something like concern. A trait you seem to share. I'd rather trust and occasionally be disappointed than suspect everyone and miss out on genuine connections, Naruto replied without hesitation. Something flickered across Lady's usually guarded expression. Surprise, perhaps. Or reluctant approval. Noble sentiment. Let's hope it doesn't get you killed. Training Ground 17 lay nestled against the base of the Hokage monument, its relative is. Olation making it ideal for their purposes. Unlike the open fields of more commonly used training areas, this one featured variable terrain, dense copses of trees, rock formations, a small stream cutting through its eastern edge, and a clearing large enough for serious sparring. Trish waited in the center of that clearing, platinum hair gleaming in the morning sunlight. Beside her stood Hinata Hyuga. Their contrasting appearances, one exuding supernatural confidence in form-fitting black leather, the other radiating quiet strength in traditional Hyuga training garb, creating a striking tableau. You're late, Trish observed as Naruto and Lady approached. I was beginning to think you'd reconsidered our arrangement. Just getting our priorities straight, Lady replied coolly. Naruto, ignoring the undercurrent of tension between the women, focused on Hinata. I didn't expect to see you here. A delicate blush touched her cheeks, but her pale eyes remained steady. I asked to join your training. After seeing how my Byakugan responded during the attack, I thought perhaps. She's right to be curious, Trish interjected. During your manifestation of angelic energy, her dojutsu showed a distinctive resonance pattern. Something worth investigating, don't you think? Lady crossed her arms, clearly not appreciating being outmaneuvered. Fine, but we stick to the training plan. Fundamentals first, experimentation later. Quote, of course, Trish agreed with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Shall we begin? The first hours of training focused on what Lady termed, Konsho's transformation, learning to access specific aspects of Naruto's demonic heritage individually rather than as an uncontrolled surge. Under her exacting guidance, he practiced manifesting claws without fangs, changing his eyes without altering his facial structure, extending wings without triggering other physiological changes. The process proved more challenging than expected. His body seemed to prefer complete transformation, resisting the compartmentalized approach Lady demanded. Again, she instructed after his fifth failed attempt to manifest only his right wing. Focus on the specific energy pathway. Visualize it as distinct from the others. Sweat beaded on Naruto's forehead as he concentrated, reaching for the now familiar crimson power but attempting to direct it with greater precision. The energy responded sluggishly, resistance building like pressure against a dam. It's fighting me, he gritted out through clenched teeth. Of course it is, Trish commented from where she observed, leaning casually against a boulder. Demonic power isn't designed for half measures. It wants full expression. Lady shot her a quelling look. Not helping. Actually, Trish straightened, approaching Naruto with analytical interest. Perhaps I am. You're applying human logic to non-human energy systems. The demon world doesn't operate on the principle of restraint, it functions on dominance. On will imposing itself upon reality. She circled Naruto slowly, her movements carrying predatory grace. Don't try to contain the power or redirect it. Command it. Your blood gives you that right. Naruto frowned, considering her words. Like how I eventually learned to work with Kurama's chakra instead of just suppressing it. Similar principle, Trish agreed. Though demonic energy lacks the sentience of your fox friend. Naruto closed his eyes, mentally shifting his approach. Instead of visualizing channels and pathways as Lady had suggested, he focused on his will, the indomitable determination that had seen him through countless battles and seemingly impossible challenges. Right wing, *, he commanded silently. Manifest, *. The response was immediate and dramatic. Energy surged through his right shoulder blade, and with a sound of tearing fabric, the leathery demonic wing erupted from his back, fully formed and functioning. Unlike previous transformations, the rest of his body remained unchanged. No claws, no fangs, eyes still their natural blue. Well done, Lady acknowledged, genuine approval coloring her typically reserved tone. Impressive, Trish agreed, circling to examine the isolated manifestation. Most devil blood takes years to achieve this level of specific control. Naruto flexed the wing experimentally, marveling at how it responded to his thoughts as naturally as any limb. It feels different this time. Less like it's happening to me and more like I'm making it happen. That's exactly the distinction we're aiming for, Lady explained. Reactive transformation versus proactive manifestation. One is triggered by external stimuli, danger, anger, fear. The other comes from centered will. Try the left wing now, Trish suggested. The angelic one. Naruto nodded, concentrating once more. This time, he reached for the golden energy that balanced his demonic heritage, that mysterious angelic essence whose origin remained unexplained. The response felt different. Less aggressive surge, more flowing current. His left wing materialized with a soft glow rather than a physical eruption, light coalescing into feather-like structures that shed motes of golden radiance. Fascinating, Trish murmured, studying the angelic wing with undisguised interest. True celestial essence, not merely an aesthetic variation of devil power. From her position several yards away, Hinata gasped softly, Naruto-kun, Your energy signature when you manifest that wing. What do you see? Lady asked sharply, attention shifting to the Hyuga heiress. Hinata activated her Byakugan, veins bulging delicately around her pale eyes. It's difficult to describe. When he manifests the demonic wing, his chakra network shows typical disruptee on patterns similar to Jinchuriki transformations. But the angelic wing creates something else entirely, like his network is being temporarily elevated to a higher frequency. Can you draw what you're seeing? Trish requested, her casual tone belying the intensity of her interest. Hinata nodded, deactivating her Byakugan and moving to a small patch of bare earth. Using a stick, she sketched two diagrams, one showing Naruto's chakra system during demonic manifestation, another during angelic activation. The differences were striking, even to untrained eyes. Where the demonic pattern showed disruption and expansion, the angelic diagram displayed harmonic reorganization, chakra pathways temporarily reconfiguring into more complex, geometrically perfect patterns. I've seen something like this before, Hinata said quietly, looking up from her drawings. In the restricted section of the Hyuga archives, ancient scrolls describing the origin of our dojutsu. Trish and Lady exchanged significant looks. What did these scrolls say exactly? Lady prompted. Hinata hesitated, clearly uncomfortable sharing clan secrets with outsiders. They're fragmentary, and much of the original meaning has been lost to time. But they speak of the Byakugan being a gift from those who dwell in the highest sphere. For generations, we interpreted this as referring to the Sage of Six Paths or perhaps even earlier mystics. But after seeing Naruto-kun's transformation, you're wondering if highest sphere might be more literal than metaphorical, Trish finished, expression thoughtful. Referring to celestial beings, angels, rather than enlightened humans. It would explain certain anomalies in your visual abilities, Lady acknowledged. The Byakugan sees chakra, yes, but also things beyond chakra, dimensional barriers. Spiritual essences, things no other dojutsu can perceive. Naruto looked between them, wings still extended from his back in striking asymmetry. So Hinata might have angelic ancestry. Like me, it's possible, Trish confirmed. Extremely diluted over countless generations, but present enough to manifest in your clan's distinctive eyes. She turned to Hinata with renewed interest, which raises intriguing possibilities for collaboration in your training. What kind of collaboration? Naruto asked. A theory worth testing, Trish replied enigmatically. But first, let's see if you can maintain partial transformation while engaging in combat. Lady, the devil hunter nodded, drawing her pistols with practiced ease. Keep the wings manifested while evading my attacks. No offensive moves, just defensive maneuvering. What followed was 30 minutes of increasingly intense combat drilling. Lady moved with lethal precision, her attacks carefully calibrated to challenge without seriously injuring. Naruto found his wings responding with surprising intuition, the demonic one automatically hardening to deflect incoming projectiles, the angelic one manipulating air currents to enhance his evasive movements. Enough, Lady finally called, holstering her weapons. Satisfactory for a first session. Naruto bent forward, hands on knees, sweat dripping from his brow. Maintaining the partial transformation throughout combat had proven more mentally taxing than physically demanding, requiring constant focus to prevent either full transformation or complete reversion to human form. Ready for the next phase? Trish asked, stepping forward. There's more. Naruto straightened, wiping perspiration from his forehead. We've established your ability to control isolated manifestations, Trish explained. Now we need to explore the interaction between your demonic and angelic aspects. Lady frowned. That wasn't on today's agenda. We should focus on wielding fundamental control before attempting energy integration. Theoretical caution is a luxury we can't afford, Trish countered smoothly. In real combat, he'll need to access both aspects simultaneously. Better to understand the interaction now, in controlled circumstances. Their disagreement, though professionally stated, carried undercurrents of deeper tension. Naruto sensed this wasn't just about training methodology but about trust, or its absence. I want to try, he decided, intervening before their dispute could escalate. If it doesn't work, we can go back to the original plan. Lady's mismatched eyes narrowed fractionally, but she stepped back with a curt nod. your training, your call. But be careful, opposing energies can have unpredictable reactions when forced together. That's what makes this interesting, Trish remarked with a smile that held genuine anticipation. She turned to Hinata. This is where your perspective becomes valuable. Watch carefully with Byakugan and document any changes or anomalies in his energy systems. Hinata nodded, activating her dojutsu once more. Now, Trish instructed Naruto, rather than keeping the energies separate, try directing them toward each other. Imagine them not as opposing forces but as complementary aspects of your true nature. Naruto closed his eyes, focusing inward. He could feel the distinct signature of his dual heritage, crimson demonic power like banked coals, golden angelic essence like captured sunlight. Following Trish's guidance, he visualized them not as segregated energies but as different expressions of the same fundamental truth. His blood, his inheritance, his identity. Harmonize, he commanded silently. Balance, For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the energies began to respond, reaching toward each other like curious entities, testing boundaries, exploring possibilities. Where they touched, Naruto felt a curious sensation, not the conflict he'd expected, but something more akin to recognition. Like long-separated twins reuniting. Externally, the change manifested in his wings. The clear delineation between demonic leather and angelic light began to blur, crimson energy threading through golden motes dancing along leathery surfaces. The asymmetry remained, but with growing integration at the molecular level. Look at his chakra network, Hinata breathed, awe evident in her voice. What do you see? Lady asked, professional interest overriding her earlier reservations. It's reorganizing itself, Hinata reported, Byakugan tracking the internal changes with perfect clarity. The demonic disruptions and angelic harmonics are negotiating with each other. Finding balance points, creating new pathways where both can flow simultaneously. Trish circled Naruto with analytical interest. His physical form is adapting as well. Subtle changes, but significant. She was right. Though Naruto maintained his predominantly human appearance, certain features were shifting. His whisker marks deepening but taking on a more symmetrical pattern, his canines lengthening slightly but with perfect proportion, his muscle definition becoming more pronounced without grotesque exaggeration. Most dramatically, his eyes had changed, not to solid crimson or pure gold, but to a striking fusion, azure irises ringed with gold, pupils vertical like a fox's but not aggressively slitted. How do you feel? Lady asked cautiously. Balanced, Naruto replied, surprised to find his voice unchanged despite the partial transformation. More complete somehow. Your energies are finding their natural equilibrium, Trish explained, satisfaction evident in her tone. Something unprecedented in my experience. Demonic and angelic essence usually destroy each other on contact, yet in you, they're cooperating, Hinata finished, deactivating her Byakugan as the strain of extended observation took its toll. Like they recognize each other as parts of a whole rather than opposing forces. Quote, Naruto extended his hands, examining the subtle changes. His nails had lengthened slightly into claws, but not the savage talons of full devil transformation, more elegant, precise, controlled. This feels right, he murmured. Not like I'm becoming something else, but like I'm finally becoming who I'm supposed to be. The moment of discovery was interrupted by approaching footsteps. All four turned to see Kakashi emerging from the tree line, accompanied by an unfamiliar kunoichi dressed in the distinctive attire of Sunagaker. Hope I'm not interrupting, Kakashi drawled. Visible eye-taking in Naruto's transformed state with clinical interest. Hokage-sama requested your presence. We have a diplomatic visitor. The woman beside him stepped forward. Teal eyes sharp with intelligence and wariness. Her blonde hair was gathered into 4 distinct ponytails, and a massive war fan was strapped to her back. Despite her youth, perhaps a year or two elder than Naruto, she carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. Tamari of the Sand, she introduced herself with a formal bow that didn't quite mask her startled reaction to Naruto's appearance. Ambassador from Sunagaker and sister to the Cage. Perfect timing, Trish remarked with a smile that held too many layers to interpret. We were just discussing the INTER section of demonic heritage and human bloodlines. Temari's composed expression faltered momentarily. How did you? She caught herself, diplomatic training reasserting control over her surprise. The Hokage mentioned unusual circumstances, but failed to specify quite how unusual. Kakashi's eye crinkled in what might have been amusement. Some things are better seen than described. Naruto, if you're finished with today's training, the Hokage is waiting. Naruto nodded, concentrating briefly to revert to his fully human appearance. The process was smoother than previous transformations, his body responding readily to his will. Lead the way, he said, falling into step beside Kakashi. As they walked toward the village, he noticed Temari studying him with barely concealed fascination. The reports weren't exaggerated, she finally commented, keeping her voice low enough that only those closest could hear. You really do have devil blood. Naruto nearly stumbled mid-step. You know about that. Temari's lips curved in a humorless smile. Suna has its own history with entities from beyond the mortal realm. The desert preserves many secrets, and many old bones that don't bellin. G to any creature ever catalogued by human science. Demons, Lady supplied, her interest clearly piqued. Among other things, Temari acknowledged cryptically. My ancestors documented encounters dating back centuries. When reports reached us about Konoha's recent visitors, the Cage recognized the description immediately. And sent you to investigate, Trish concluded. Temari inclined her head slightly. To investigate, yes, but also to offer alliance. If these incursions continue, they won't remain isolated to Fire Country. Suna has encountered similar anomalies in our western territories, missing patrols. Strange atmospheric disturbances, markings similar to those found at your attack sites. A coordinated effort across multiple nations, Kakashi mused, his casual demeanor belying the sharp analysis evident in his tone. Establishing foothold points for a larger invasion. That's our assessment as well, Temari confirmed. Which is why the Cage authorized me to shish. Are certain restricted historical records, scrolls dating from the era when the desert demon Shukaku was first sealed. Naruto exchanged meaningful glances with Lady and Trish. This development potent. Ally offered valuable context for understanding his own heritage and the current demonic incursions. Does Gaara know? He asked, thinking of his fellow Jinchuriki and friend. About the connection between his Biju and these demons. The Cage was the one who made the connection, Temari replied, a hint of pride coloring her tone. After your transformation was reported to our intelligence division, he personally retrieved the ancient accounts from our sealed archives. Their arrival at the Hokage Tower temporarily suspended the conversation. Guards nodded them through with minimal formality. Evidence of the increasingly fluid security protocols necessitated by recent events. As they ascended the stairs to Tsunade's office, Naruto found himself walking beside Hinata, who had Rime. Ned quietly observant throughout the exchange with Temari. Are you okay? He asked softly, noticing the slight tension in her posture. That was a lot of chakra to observe with your Byakugan. I'm fine, she assured him. Though fatigue shadowed her pale eyes. More concerned about you, actually. The integration of your energies was progressing rapidly. If we hadn't been interrupted. You think something might have gone wrong. She shook her head slowly. Not wrong, exactly. Just further than might be safe for a first attempt. The rate of change was accelerating exponentially. Before Naruto could probe deeper, they arrived at Tsunade's office. The Hokage sat behind her desk, fingers steepled before her face, amber eyes sharp with interest as they entered. Shizune stood at her right hand, while Shikamaru occupied a chair to her left, slouched in his characteristic pose that belied his keen attention. Good, you're here, Tsunade acknowledged briskly. Ambassador Temari has brought information that may shed light on our current situation. She gestured toward a collection of ancient-looking scrolls spread across her desk. Specifically, historical accounts that mention Sparda by name. Naruto's breath caught. Sparda visited Suna, not Suna specifically, Temari clarified, moving to the desk and carefully unrolling one of the more fragile-looking documents. But, the land that would later become the Land of Wind. According to these accounts, approximately 1500 years ago, a great demon lord attempted to establish a permanent gateway between realms in what we now call the Shifting Sands Desert. She indicated intricate illustrations on the scroll, diagrams of complex ritual circles, stylized depictions of monstrous entities, and a recurring figure that appeared in multiple scenes, a tall warrior with distinctive swept-back hair, wielding a massive sword. The texts describe a knight of shadow who turned against his kind, Tamari continued, finger-tracing ancient characters. He fought alongside human mystics to seal the gateway and bind the demon lord's general, a great Tanuki spirit, into human form. Shukaku, Naruto realized. The on-e-tail isn't a natural biju like Kurama. It's a bound demon. Precisely, Tamari confirmed, which explains certain anomalies in its behavior and abilities compared to other tailed beasts. Lady leaned forward, studying the illustrations with professional interest. These sealing methods, they're similar to techniques documented in other regions where Sparda intervened. The same fundamental principles adapted to local mystical traditions. The consistency suggests deliberate knowledge transfer, Trish observed, her attention fixed on the depicted warrior. Sparda wasn't just fighting demons. He was teaching humans how to protect themselves in his absence. Tsunade's expression remained carefully neutral, though her eyes betrayed keen interest. While these historical connections are fascinating, our immediate concern is practical application. Does this information offer insights into our current situation? Tamari nodded, selecting another scroll. The accounts detail how to identify different classes of demonic incursion and appropriate countermeasures. More importantly, they describe warning signs that preceded the attempted gateway establishment, patterns identical to W. Hat we're observing now across our territories. A repeat performance, Shikamaru drawled from his chair, eyes sharp despite his relaxed posture. Someone's following the old playbook. With modern adaptations, Kakashi added. Examining the ancient diagrams, the attack patterns we've documented show similarities to these historical accounts, but with notable tactical evolutions. Which suggests our opponent has access to both the ancient knowledge and contemporary strategic understanding, Lady concluded grimly. Not a mindless demonic horde, but an intelligent, coordinated campaign. Tsunade's expression hardened. Do these records indicate how to disrupt the gateway establishment process? Yes and no, Tamari replied carefully. They describe the original method, a combined ritual involving specialized sealing techniques and, she hesitated, glancing at Naruto, the direct intervention of Sparda himself. His blood was apparently a key component in permanently binding the gateway closed. The implication hung in the air, obvious to everyone present. If Sparda's blood had been necessary then, Naruto, as his son, represented a similar resource now. That explains the concentrated effort to confirm my existence. Naruto stated flatly. They either want to use me to complete their ritual, or they see me as the only real threat to its success. Likely both, Trish commented. Sparda's blood has unique properties. In the wrong hands, it could power a gateway just as effectively as it could seal one. Silence fell as they absorbed the implications. Naruto felt the weight of heritage settling more firmly on his shoulders, no longer abstract lineage but practical power with real-world consequences. We need to accelerate your training, Lady decided, breaking the contemplative silence. If they're following the historical pattern, we have until the celestial alignment mentioned in these texts. The crimson eclipse, Tamari supplied. When the moon passes out the shadow of the world but emerges bathed in red light. According to our astronomers, it occurs in 17 days. 2.5 weeks to prepare, Tsunade concluded, her expression grim. Hardly seems adequate given the stakes. It will have to be, Naruto stated with quiet determination. I've mastered techniques in less time before when necessary. This isn't just about mastering techniques, Trish cautioned. It's about fundamentally integrating aspects of your nature that most beings find irreconcilable. Demonic and angelic energies don't naturally coexist. They do in me, Naruto countered. We saw that today. They're finding balance. Speaking of which, Kakashi interjected, his casual tone belying sharp observation. Your control seems to have improved dramatically since I saw you last. No random transformations when emotionally stressed. Naruto shook his head. Not since I started consciously working with the energies rather than fighting them. It's like your relationship with the Nine Tails, Tsunade supplied, her medical expertise informing her analysis. Once you stopped treating it as an enemy to be suppressed and recognized it as a part of yourself to be integrated. Your control improved exponentially. Exactly, Naruto confirmed. Though Kurama's not thrilled about sharing space with what he calls my celestial inheritance. Apparently demons and angels have some long-standing grudges. Understatement of the millennium, Trish remarked dryly. Their conflict predates human civilization. Tsunade rose from her desk, decision apparently reached. Very well. Ambassador Tamari will coordinate with our intelligence division to synthesize Suna's historical knowledge with our current threat assessment. Lady and, she paused. Eyeing Trish with barely concealed suspicion, our supernatural consultants will continue Naruto's accelerated training. Kakashi, I want you to work with Anbu to establish an early warning network. Using the historical attack patterns as a predictive model. Her gaze swept the assembled group, settling finally on Naruto. As for you, no holding back. If integrating these aspects of your heritage is key to addressing this threat, then push those boundaries. I'm authorizing use of Training Ground 44 for your more explosive practice sessions. Naruto nodded, recognizing both the practical necessity and the implied trust in this authorization. The Forest of Death provided both isolation for dangerous training and natural barriers to contain potential energy discharges. One more thing, Tsunade added, her expression softening fractionally. Don't lose yourself in this process, brat. Your greatest strength has always been your humanity, your heart, your values, your unbreakable will. Whether you're part demon, part angel, or part potted plant, that core identity matters more than any inherited power. The unexpected sentiment caught Naruto off guard, touching something vulnerable beneath his determined exterior. Thanks, Ba-chan, he replied, using the affectionate nickname that would have earned anyone else a chakra-enhanced punch. I'll remember that. As the meeting concluded and they filed from the office, Naruto found himself walking between Lady and Trish, with Hinata and Tamari following close behind. The diverse group drew curious glances from Shinobi T. Hay passed in the hallway, the devil hunter with her distinctive weapons, the leather-clad demoness with her supernatural beauty, the Hyuga heiress with her quiet dignity, and the Suna ambassador with her formal bearing. And at their center, Naruto Uzumaki, outwardly unchanged from the orange-clad troublemaker Konoha had known for years, yet carrying within him power that could either save their world or help destroy it. So, he broke the thoughtful silence as they emerged into the afternoon sunlight. Who's hungry? Transforming really builds an appetite, and Ichiraku should be open by now. The mundane suggestion startled a laugh from Lady, a genuine sound of amusement that momentarily transformed her typically guarded features. Only you would follow a discussion about apocalyptic demon portals with a ramen craving. Priorities, Naruto replied with a grin that flashed slightly sharper canines than before. Save the world, eat ramen. Not necessarily in that order. Ichiraku. Ramen had escaped damage during the demonic incursion, a fact Naruto attributed to divine intervention and Tuki staunchly credited to building with quality materials. The small establishment hummed with lunchtime activity, regulars and reconstruction workers alike seeking comfort in steaming bowls of noodles. Their unusual group claimed the far end of the counter, with Naruto instinctively positioning himself where he could observe both the entrance and the kitchen. Lady noted this tactical awareness with approving interest, while Trish seemed more focused on studying the menu with undisguised curiosity. I don't understand the appeal of consuming sustenance this way, she murmured, quiet enough that only those with enhanced hearing could catch the comment. So inefficient compared to direct energy absorption. That's because you're experiencing food as function rather than pleasure, Naruto replied equally quietly. Ramen isn't just fuel, it's an experience. Trish's perfect eyebrows rose fractionally. You detected my nature immediately, didn't you? That first day in the training ground. Naruto shrugged, accepting a steaming bowl from Ayame with a grateful smile before continuing their discreet conversation. Something about your energy signature felt familiar but different. Like looking at a photograph negative of something I recognized. Perceptive, Trish acknowledged, something like respect coloring her tone. Most humans, even those with devil blood, can't distinguish artificial demons from naturals without obvious tells. Artificial, Naruto repeated, chopsticks pausing halfway to his mouth. Trish's expression closed slightly, a subtle withdrawal that might have gone unnoticed by less observant companions. A discussion for another time, she deflected smoothly, accepting her own bowl with practiced social grace. For now, let's experience this ramen phenomenon you're so passionate about. Sensing her reluctance to pursue the topic, Naruto allowed the conversation to shift. The meal progressed with surprising normalcy considering the diverse nature of their group, Lady discussing weapon modifications with Temari, whose war fan apparently incorporated principles similar to certain devil hunting tools, Hinata quietly observing but offering insightful comments when addressed directly, Trish gradually warming to the social dynamics, her initial aloofness softening around the edges. As they finished their meals, Ayame approached with fresh tea. So, she began with the familiar directness of someone who had known Naruto since childhood. Are you going to introduce your friends, or should I just keep referring to them as mysterious leather lady, gun enthusiast, Hinata-chan, and intimidating sand ninja, in my head? Naruto choked mid-sip, earning a hearty laugh from Chuki behind the counter. Ayame Ni-chan, sorry, I didn't. I mean, he stumbled through introductions, suddenly aware of how strange this gathering must appear to longtime villagers who knew him primarily as the knuckle-headed ninja with a ramen obsession. Pleased to meet you all, Ayame said warmly once he'd finished. Any friends of Naruto-kun are welcome here. She leaned in conspiratorially. Though I admit, I'm curious how our local troublemaker ended up with such an interesting entourage. Long story, Naruto replied with a rueful smile. Involving demons, angels, and interdimensional invasion threats, Trish added helpfully, earning sharp looks from both Lady and Temari. Ayame blinked, then laughed, clearly interpreting the comment as humorous exaggeration. Well, whatever mission brought you all together, I'm glad to see Naruto-kun making new friends. He's always had a gift for bringing people together. As she moved away to attend other customers, Lady raised an eyebrow at Trish. Subtle. She didn't believe me, Trish replied with a casual shrug. Humans have remarkable capacity for rationalizing the supernatural into comfortable categories. A protective instinct, Hinata observed quietly. The mind shields itself from concepts too disruptive to easily integrate. Temari nodded, serious eyes reflecting appreciation for the insight, which works to our advantage in managing public response to these incidents. People will accept unknown enemy technique more readily than demonic invasion from another dimension. Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by a messenger hawk circling overhead, its distinctive cry drawing attention. The bird descended with practiced precision, landing on a perch specifically installed outside Ichiraku for such communications. A small cylinder was attached to its leg, marked with the Hokage's official seal. Naruto retrieved the message, breaking the seal to scan its contents. His expression shifted from curiosity to grim determination as he read. Another attack, Lady guessed, already checking her weapons. Not exactly, Naruto replied, rolling the small scroll closed. A patrol found something in the forests west of here, what they described as a structure of bone and black stone that wasn't there yesterday. They reported strange energy readings and unusual wildlife behavior in the vicinity. A demonic construction, Trish stated with certainty. Likely another anchor point for their gateway working. Tsunade wants us to investigate immediately, Naruto continued. She's authorizing an expeditionary team under my command, with all of you specifically requested if willing. Convenient timing, Lady remarked, suspicion evident in her tone. Just as we're discussing their strategy. Or logical progression, Temari countered. If they're following the historical pattern documented in our scrolls, establishing secondary anchor points would be the next step after confirming the presence of Sparda's bloodline. Regardless of timing, we should move quickly, Hinata advised, already activating her Byakugan to scan the western horizon. If this structure is similar to the anchor points described in the Suna records, it will strengthen over time as it attunes to this realm. Naruto nodded, decision made. We leave in 15 minutes. Standard mission gear, plus whatever specialized equipment you need for dealing with demonic entities. As they dispersed to prepare, Naruto found himself momentarily alone with Trish, who had fallen into step beside him with casual grace. This expedition presents an opportunity, she commented, voice pitched for his ears alone. A chance to test your integrated transformation in field Kondi. Tions without the constraints of the village environment. Naruto glanced at her sharply. You think I'm ready for that? I think circumstances rarely align with readiness, she replied with pragmatic honesty. But yes, your progress has been exceptional. Far beyond what I anticipated when I first identified your energy signature. Something in her phrasing caught his attention. When you first identified it, before coming to Konoha, a flicker of something, perhaps caution, perhaps calculation, crossed her perfect features before she offered a slight smile. Let's just say your awakening registered across multiple realms. Those sensitive to such energies took notice, including whoever sent you, Naruto deduced, stopping to face her directly. You never did explain who you're really representing in all this. Trish met his gaze without flinching, blue eyes reflecting complex emotions beneath her composed exterior. Would you believe me if I said my priorities have shifted since arriving here? Possibly, he replied honestly. The question is, shifted how, and why? For a moment, genuine conflict played across her features, an unguarded glimpse beneath the carefully maintained facade of confident detachment. Because you're not what I expected, she finally admitted. What any of us expected. You should be impossible, demonic and angelic essence coexisting in perfect balance. Integrated with human chakra in ways that defy conventional understanding. And yet, she gestured toward him, the movement encompassing his entire being. Here you stand, confounding every established principle of supernatural metaphysics. Is that good or bad from your perspective? Naruto pressed, sensing a rare moment of authenticity from the enigmatic demoness. Trish's lips curved, in a smile that held surprising warmth. Let's call it intriguing, and potentially revolutionary, depending on what you ultimately become. Before he could pursue this tantalizing thread further, Lady appeared from a side street. Equipment pack slung over her shoulder and expression businesslike. If you two are finished with your private conference, the others are assembling at the west gate. Naruto nodded, filing away his conversation with Trish for future consideration. Whatever her original mission in coming to Konoha, her actions thus far had proven helpful rather than harmful. Time would reveal whether that alignment remained consistent. The forest west of Konoha had always possessed a certain wildness, a reluctance to fully submit to human presence despite generations of shinobi traversing its depths. Today, that natural resistance felt amplified, trees looming taller, shadows stretching longer, animal sounds conspicuously absent where they should have been abundant. The ecosystem is responding to the intrusion, Hinata observed as they moved swiftly through the canopy. Her Byakugan remained active, scanning their surroundings with meticulous precision. Natural energy patterns are being disrupted and redirected toward a central point approximately 3 kilometers ahead. Classic sign of a demonic anchor establishing itself, Lady confirmed, moving with practiced stealth despite her non-shinobi training. They parasitize the natural energy of the host environment to stabilize their foothold. Tamari, keeping pace easily despite being unfamiliar with Fire Country's terrain, adjusted the massive fan strapped to her back. The Suna records described similar environmental reactions, desert oases drying up, wildlife fleeing, native plants withering. Strange fungal growths appeared overnight. Naruto, Trish called softly from her position at their flank. Do you sense it? He nodded grimly, having noticed the growing pressure against his su. Her natural senses, a subtle but persistent pull that seemed to tug at both his demonic and angelic essence. It's like a gravity well for power. Drawing everything toward it, it will affect you more strongly than the others. Trish warned. Anchor points are specifically designed to attract and channel energy signatures like yours. Be prepared for increased manifestation pressure as we approach. Naruto acknowledged this with a determined nod, focusing on maintaining his human form despite the growing urge to transform. The sensation wasn't entirely unpleasant, more seductive than painful, promising power and clarity if he would just release his careful control. They continued forward with increased caution, eventually halting at Hinata's silent signal. She pointed toward a small clearing ahead, visible through gaps in the forest canopy. The structure is just beyond those trees, she whispered, veins bulging around her eyes as her Byakugan strained to analyze what lay ahead. It's difficult to describe. My dojutsu can't quite focus on its central components. Dimensional distortion, Lady murmured, checking her weapons with practiced efficiency. The anchor exists partially in our realm and partially in the demon world. It's designed to gradually strengthen the connection until the barrier becomes permeable. Tactical suggestions. Tamari asked. Her training is both shinobi and diplomat, evident in her methodical approach. The Suna records weren't specific about neutralization methods. Observation first, Naruto decided. We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before taking action. He turned to Trish. You have the most direct knowledge of these structures. What should we look for? Something like approval flickered in her eyes at his measured approach. The anchor will have physical manifestations, typically crystalline formations or organic-seeming structures that house its energy matrix. Destroying these components disrupts the connection, but may trigger defensive mechanisms. Then we observe carefully and plan accordingly, Naruto concluded. Hinata, take point with your Byakugan. Lady and Trish, analyze from supernatural perspectives. Tamari and I will provide perimeter security and combat support if needed. With roles established, they advanced toward the clearing with coordinated stealth. As they reached its edge, the full impact of what awaited them became apparent. By the sage, Tamari breathed, teal eyes widening at the sight before them. In the center of the clearing stood a structure that defied conventional architectural principles. Towering nearly 30 feet high, it resembled a twisted spire composed of gleaming black stone and what appeared to be massive bones of indeterminate origin. The materials were fused seamlessly, as though grown rather than constructed, and the entire edifice pulsed with subtle rhythm, contracting and expanding like a breathing organism. Surrounding the spire was a perfectly circular zone where the forest floor had transformed. Normal undergrowth had withered and been replaced by a carpet of reddish vegetation that resembled moss but moved with disturbing independence, rippling in patterns that corresponded to the spire's pulsations. Most unsettling were the symbols etched into both the structure and the ground around it, complex geometrical patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly, causing momentary vertigo in the observer. Don't look directly at the inscriptions, Trish warned sharply. They're designed to disorient human perception, a passive defense mechanism. Naruto felt the pull more strongly now, both the demonic and angelic aspects of his heritage responding to the anchor's presence. The sensation reminded him of standing near a powerful magnet while holding metal objects, a persistent tug that required conscious resistance. Hinata, he prompted quietly, noting her intense concentration as she studied the structure with her Byakugan. The central spire contains a void, she reported, struggling to articulate what her enhanced vision perceived. Not emptiness, but a space where this reality connects to somewhere else. Energy flows both ways across the barrier, primarily entering our world rather than leaving it. One-way transfer, Lady translated grimly. They're feeding power into this realm to strengthen the connection. Classic gateway preparation. There's something else, Hinata continued, focusing more intently. At the base of the spire, a containment vessel of some kind. It's holding something alive. This new information sent a ripple of tension through the group. Trish and Lady exchanged significant looks, while Tamari's hand moved to her war fan with practiced readiness. A sacrifice, Trish stated flatly. Anchors of this magnitude typically require living essence to maintain stability during their formative phase. We need to see what, or who, they're using, Naruto decided, his protective instincts flaring. If someone's being held captive in that thing. Agreed, but with caution, Lady cautioned. This could also be bait for a trap, especially if they anticipated investigation. After brief consultation, they developed a reconnaissance plan. Hinata would maintain observation from cover, using her Byakugan to monitor the structure for changes or threats. Tamari would establish a position on the clearing's opposite side, ready to provide long-range support with her wind techniques if needed. Lady, with her specialized equipment for detecting demonic energies, would approach from the east. While Trish circled to the west, her innate understanding of demonic constructions making her best suited to identify vulnerabilities. Naruto, being the most likely target if this was indeed a trap, would approach directly but remain just beyond the perimeter of the transformed vegetation. His role was to draw attention if any hidden guardians existed, while remaining mobile enough to avoid entrapment. They separated with practiced efficiency, each moving to their designated position. Naruto approached the edge of the clearing cautiously, every sense, both human and supernatural, alert for danger. The pull on his demonic and angelic essence intensified with each step, becoming almost painful in its insistence. Kit, Kurama's voice rumbled through his consciousness, the nine tails unusually agitated. This construct, it's designed to resonate with multiple energy types simultaneously, including Biju Chakra. That unexpected information heightened Naruto's wariness. You think they're targeting Jinchuriki specifically? Not targeting, Kurama corrected. Incorporating. This technology predates human civilization. It was originally designed to harness the natural energy of multiple realms without discrimination. But it could potentially drain you along with my other energies. Naruto clarified, disturbed by the implication. Theoretically, though your particular configuration makes you uniquely resistant to such manipulation. The fox's mental tone carried reluctant admiration. The balance between your demonic, angelic, and human aspects creates interference patterns that would complicate any attempt at direct energy extraction. Reassured but still cautious, Naruto reached the edge of the transformed vegetation. Up close, the reddish moss-like growth appeared even more unsettling, tiny filaments within it pulsing with bioluminescent light, the entire carpet shifting in hypnotic patterns synchronized with the Ri's rhythmic expansions and contractions. Through their established communication channel, a simple radio system Lady had provided, modified to function near supernatural energies, he reported his observations. The ground covering appears semi-sentient, he described quietly. Responsive to proximity. It's reaching toward me. Indeed, the reddish growth had begun extending tendrils in his direction, stretching beyond the previously perfect circle it had maintained. Don't let it touch you, Trish's voice came through with unusual urgency. It's a sensory extension of the anchor itself, assigned to identify and categorize energy signatures. Noted, Naruto acknowledged, maintaining his position just beyond the extending tendrils' reach. Any sign of the containment vessel Hinata identified. North side of the base. Hinata's soft voice replied, partially embedded in the structure. I can see movement within. Definitely something alive, but its chakra signature is corrupted somehow. Not fully human anymore. The grim implication hung in the air. Whatever, or whoever, was being used to power this anchor had been fundamentally altered by the process. I've identified a potential vulnerability, Trish reported after several tense minutes of observation. The anchor's power distribution isn't symmetrical. There's a concentration point on the western face, possibly the initial manifestation site. Disrupting that could destabilize the entire structure. At what risk to whatever's contained inside? Naruto asked, unwilling to sacrifice an innocent life even to prevent greater harm. A pause. Unknown, Trish admitted. But if we don't neutralize this anchor soon, whatever remains of that being will be completely consumed anyway. A difficult calculus, but one that demanded resolution. Before Naruto could issue further instructions, however, Lady's urgent voice cut through their communications. Movement inside the structure. Something's emerging. All attention shifted to the spire's base, where a section of the black stone was liquefying, flowing aside to create an opening. From within emerged a figure that initially appeared human, a man of average height, wearing what resembled tattered priestly vestments. As he fully exited the structure, however, his true nature became apparent. His skin held an unnatural grayish pallor, and his movements possessed a jerky quality reminiscent of a puppet with tangled strings. Most disturbing were his eyes, completely black from corner to corner, reflecting no light. A possessed human, Trish identified immediately. Mid-level demonic entity using a mortal shell. The possessed man halted several paces from the spire, head tilting at an uncomfortable angle as he surveyed the forest's edge. Though Naruto remained concealed, the creature's black eyes fixed unerringly on his position. Son of Sparda, it called, voice layered with unnatural harmonics that sent shivers down the spine. We sensed your approach. How considerate of you to deliver yourself to us. Abandoning concealment is useless. Naruto stepped into view at the clearing's edge. Who are you, and what do you want? The creature's face contorted into an approximation of a smile, lips stretching too wide for human anatomy. I am merely a herald, a voice for those who await beyond the veil. As for what we want, it gestured expansively, indicating the spire behind it. Passage. Return. Restoration of ancient hierarchies long disrupted by your father's rebellion. Not going to happen, Naruto stated flatly. Whatever you're planning stops now. The herald laughed, the sound reminiscent of breaking glass. Bold words from one so newly awakened to his heritage. You barely understand what you are, let alone what you face. It took a step forward, feet hovering slightly above the reddish vegetation rather than touching it. But we are not unreasonable. There is a place for you in the new order, a position of privilege befitting Sparda's bloodline. Should you choose to embrace your demonic nature and abandon these lesser beings you protect. The transparent attempt at manipulation would have been almost amusing if not for the deadly serious context. Naruto felt his companions tensing in their hidden positions, ready to act on his signal. Not interested in your offer, he replied evenly. Last chance to leave this realm peacefully. The herald's expression hardened, all pretense of diplomacy vanishing. Then we take what we need by force. Your blood, willing or unwilling, will serve our purpose. It raised a hand, and the air behind it shimmered. From within the spire emerged 3 more figures, humanoid in basic shape but clearly never human. Their bodies appeared constructed from the same black stone as the spire itself. Limbs too long and jointed in too many places, faces smooth and featureless save for glowing crimson eyes. Stone constructs, lady identified through the communication channel. Physical damage will be minimally effective. Target the eyes, their focus points for the animating energy. Understood, Naruto acknowledged, already reaching for the crimson power within. The transformation came easily now, his body responding instantly to his will. Claws extended from his fingertips, fangs lengthened in his mouth, eyes shifting to that distinctive crimson gold hue. The Hera, LD observed these changes with visible interest. Fascinating. The rumors were true, you carry both infernal and celestial essence. An unprecedented combination. Its black eyes narrowed calculatingly. All the more valuable for our purposes. Without further preamble, it gestured sharply, and the stone constructs attacked as one, moving with surprising speed despite their apparently solid composition. Naruto met their charge with preternatural grace, Maelstrom materializing in his right hand with a thought. The blade connected with the lead construct's arm, and instead of the resistance he expected. It cut through with surprising ease, the weapon's unique properties apparently ideal for countering these entities. Where Maelstrom touched, the black stone cracked and fell away, golden light briefly illuminating the wounds before they sealed themselves with unnatural speed. They regenerate, he called out, warning his companions as he dodged a sweeping blow from a second construct. Seuss. Tamed damage needed for permanent effect. The clearing erupted into coordinated battle. Tamari unleashed her wind techniques from the western perimeter, the chakra-enhanced gusts powerful enough to stagger even the stone constructs. Lady provided covering fire from the east, her specialized ammunition striking with precise accuracy at the creature's glowing eyes. Where her bullets hit, the stone fractured in spiderweb patterns, temporarily disrupting the construct's movements. Hinata remained in her observation position, calling out tactical information as the battle progressed. The Herald D is channeling energy from the spire to the constructs, she reported. Connection points at the base of their necks. Trish used this intelligence to devastating effect, materialized behind one con. Struck with supernatural speed and driving her lightning-charged hand directly into the identified weak point. The creature convulsed violently before collapsing into inert rubble. Meanwhile, Naruto found himself directly engaging the remaining 2 constructs simultaneously. The close-quarters combat pushed his transformed abilities to their limits, demanding instantaneous adaptation to the creature's unnatural movement patterns and regenerative capabilities. Instinctively, he reached deeper into his dual heritage, allowing demonic and angelic energies to flow together more freely than he had during training. The response was immediate and dramatic, his wings erupting from his back with explosive force, one demonic leather, one angelic light, but now showing greater integration where they joined his body. The asymmetrical appendages provided both offensive and defensive advantages, the demonic wing hardening to block crushing blows while the angelic wing disoriented his opponents with pulses of golden light. The containment vessel is destabilizing. Hinata's urgent voice cut through the combat focus. Whatever's inside is reacting to the battle energy. The Herald, who had Rima In near the spire directing its constructs, snarled with inhuman frustration. Enough games. The master grows impatient. It raised both hands, and the spire behind it pulsed with increased intensity. The reddish vegetation rippling violently in response. From within the structure came an agonized wail. Not quite human, not quite animal, as the containment vessel Hinata had identified began to glow with sickly green light. The energy built rapidly, creating visible distortions in the air surrounding the spire. They're forcing a partial breakthrough. Trish shouted, abandoning her position to sprint toward the spire. If that containment ruptures. Her warning was cut short as the herald made a sharp, twisting gesture. The air between dimensions thinned, and something reached through. No. A physical entity but a manifestation of will and malice that struck Trish with enough force to send her flying backward into the treeline. Trish, Naruto called out, momentarily distracted. The App's inattention cost him as one of the stone constructs landed a solid blow to his midsection, driving him to one knee. The herald laughed, the sound echoing with unnatural resonance. Your divided heritage makes you powerful. Son of Sparda, but also vulnerable. You haven't learned to fully integrate your disparate aspects. It approached with confident malice, black eyes fixed on Naruto's struggling form. A shame. With proper guidance, you might have transcended your father's legacy rather than merely inheriting it. Something in those mocking words struck a chord within Naruto, not anger or fear, but clarity. The herald was right about one thing. He hadn't fully integrated his heritage. But not because he couldn't. Because he hadn't needed to. Until now, with sudden understanding, Naruto stopped fighting the pull he'd felt since approaching the anchor. Instead, he redirected it, drawing the energy attempting to extract his power back into himself, creating a feedback loop that the anchor's designers had never anticipated. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The crimson energy of his demonic heritage and the golden light of his angelic essence began to flow together more completely than ever before. Not just coexisting but truly merging at fundamental levels. Where they combined, a new energy emerged, neither red nor gold but a radiant bronze that contained aspects of both while transcending either alone. His physical form responded to this integration, transforming not into something more monstrous or more divine, but into a harmonized state that incorporated elements of both. His wings melded at the base, still asymmetrical in appearance but now functioning as a unified pair. The claws and fangs remained, but refined into more elegant, controlled forms. Most dramatically, his eyes shifted, still vertically slitted, still with golden rings, but now with a base color of deep violet that combined the crimson of his devil form with his natural blue. The herald stumbled backward, black eyes widening with what could only be described as supernatural fear. Impossible, it hissed. The energies cannot harmonize. They are fundamentally opposed. Not in me, Naruto replied, his voice resonating with newfound power and certainty. He rose to his feet, maelstrom transforming in his hand, the blade expanding and reshaping itself to reflect his integrated state. Bronze energy flowing along its length like liquid metal. With a single flap of his harmonized wings, he launched himself directly at the herald, covering the distance between them in a heartbeat. Maelstrom struck with precision, not targeting the possessed body but the demonic essence within it. The blade passed through physical flesh without harm, instead severing the supernatural bonds it tethered the possessing entity to its human host. The man collapsed like a marionette with cut strings, while a writhing shadow briefly manifested above him before dissipating with an unearthly shriek. Free of the possessing entity, the human's natural coloration began returning immediately, eyes clearing as his soul reclaimed sole ownership of his body. Without their controlling intelligence, the remaining stone constructs faltered, movements becoming erratic and uncoordinated. Tamari and Lady capitalized on this vulnerability, combining wind techniques and specialized ammunition to shatter them beyond regenerative capacity. The immediate threat neutralized, Naruto turned his attention to the spire itself, specifically, the containment vessel that still pulsed with ominous energy. With his integrated senses, he could now perceive what Hinata had described, a living being, horribly transformed, being used as a power source for the anchor. We need to free whatever's in there, he called to his companions. Hinata, guide me to the access point. Trish, if you're able, I need your expertise on safely disrupting the containment without killing what's inside. Trish emerged from the treeline, looking somewhat disheveled but fundamentally unharmed. Her eyes widened fractionally at Naruto's transformed appearance, something like wonder briefly crossing her features before professional focus reasserted itself. The integration succeeded, she observed, approaching the spire with cautious respect. Your energy signature is extraordinary. Neither demonic nor angelic but something new entirely. Analyze later. Rescue now. Lady reminded them briskly, joining their approach with weapons at ready. That containment won't remain stable much longer without the Herald maintaining it. Guided by Hinata's Byakugan and Trish's technical knowledge, they identified the access mechanism, a complex arrangement of symbols that responded to specific energy signatures. Using his integrated power, Naruto activated the release sequence, causing a section of the spire to reconfigure itself, revealing the containment vessel within. The sight that greeted them was both pitiful and disturbing. Suspended in a translucent fluid that glowed with sickly luminescence was what had once been a human, gender indeterminate due to extensive transformation, body partially merged with cries. Taline growths that connected directly to the spire's interior structure. Can we save them? Naruto asked quietly, the protective instinct that had defined his character long before discovering his supernatural heritage rising to the fore. Trish studied the containment system with professional detachment that couldn't quite mask her disgust at the cruelty evident in its design. The physical integration is extensive, but the soul appears intact, isolated in a stasis field to prevent complete assimilation. She glanced at Hinata for confirmation. Can your eyes verify? Hinata focused intently, veins around her eyes pulsing with the strain of such precise observation. The core chakra network remains discrete from the artificial system. With careful extraction, she looked to Naruto, confidence in her gentle voice. Your integrated energy might be able to disrupt the stasis field without damaging the soul within. Taking a steadying breath, Naruto reached out with both hands, allowing his bronze energy to flow toward the containment vessel. The power moved with purpose, surrounding the captive being with gentle luminescence that gradually separated biological tissue from crystalline invasion, severing artificial connections while preserving natural systems. The process required exquisite control. Too much power would destroy what remained of the person, too little would fail to break the demonic technology's hold. Naruto found himself drawing on everything he had learned about chakra control throughout his ninja career, combining it with his newfound understanding of his supernatural heritage to perform what amounted to metaphysical surgery. Minutes stretched with agonizing slowness as the extraction continued. Tamari maintained a protective perimeter around them, while Lady monitored the spire for signs of collapse or reactivation. Trish provided technical guidance throughout, her expertise proving invaluable in navigating the containment system's complexities. Finally, with a soft chime like breaking crystal, the stasis field collapsed completely. The partly transformed human floated free of the artificial connections, still unconscious but now radiating a more natural energy signature as their soul reclaimed dominance over their physical form. We need to move quickly, Trish advised as Naruto carefully lifted the freed captive. Without its power source, the anchor will begin collapsing. The process won't be gentle. As if confirming her warning, the spire emitted an ominous groan, black stone cracking in several places as the structure's internal energies destabilized. The reddish vegetation surrounding it began to wither and blacken, curling in on itself like burning paper. Fall back to minimum safe distance, Naruto ordered, TRA.NS ferrying the unconscious victim to Lady's care before turning back toward the destabilizing structure. I need to ensure it collapses completely rather than just reconfiguring. That's going to talk. More power than mere physical destruction, Trish cautioned. These anchors are designed with redundant systems. I know, Naruto cut her off with uncharacteristic directness. That's why I'm going to use my blood. The Herald said it himself. Sparda's bloodline is what they need for their ritual. It's also what can permanently disrupt it. Understanding dawned in Trish's eyes. Like calls to like. Clever. Without further debate, Naruto approached the crumbling spire. Using one clawed finger, he opened a shallow cut across his palm, allowing his unique blood, now shimmering with bronze lights that reflected his integrated state, to flow freely. I reject your purpose, he stated firmly, pressing his bleeding hand against the spire's central mass. By the blood of Sparda, by the will of his son. I sever this connection between realms. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Where his blood touched the structure, bronze energy spread outward like wildfire, consuming the black stone and bone in crackling waves of power. The spire shuddered violently, more cracks appearing across its surface as internal energies turned destructively inward rather than reaching across dimensions. Naruto leapt backward as the collapse accelerated, powerful wings carrying him well beyond the danger zone. He rejoined his companions at the forest's edge just as the spire imploded with a thunderous crack, collapsing into itself with such force that it left a perfect hemispherical depression in the earth where it had stood. For several moments, they observed in silence as the unnatural vegetation withered completely, leaving bare soil that would eventually recover its natural fertility. The dimensional distortion that had been building dissipated like morning fog under strong sunlight, reality reasserting its proper structure. That, Tamari finally remarked with dry understatement, was certainly effective. And unprecedented, Trish added, studying Naruto with undisguised fascination. The integration of your energies shouldn't be possible according to every established principle of supernatural metaphysics. Yet here you stand, living proof that the impossible merely awaits proper circumstances. Naruto glanced down at himself, noting the changes this integrated transformation had wrought. Unlike his previous demonic manifestations which had felt somewhat foreign despite their power, this form resonated with profound rightness, as though he had finally aligned with his true nature rather than expressing only partial aspects of it. "How do you feel?" Lady asked, her professional assessment not quite masking genuine concern. "Complete," Naruto replied simply. He flexed his wings, feeling how perfectly they responded to his will despite their asymmetrical appearance. "Like I've found balance I didn't know I was missing." Hinata approached hesitantly, pale eyes studying him with wonder rather than fear. "Your chakra network has completely restructured itself," she observed softly. "The human, demonic, and angelic energies are no longer separate systems temporarily coexisting. They've integrated into something new, something unique." "Son of Sparda in truth," Trish murmured. "But something more as well. Something beyond what even your father achieved." The former herald was regaining consciousness, his now normal eyes blinking in confusion as he took in his surroundings. The freed captive remained unconscious but stable, their partially transformed body showing signs of gradually returning to human baseline as their natural healing processes reasserted control. "We should return to Konoha," Naruto decided, his integrated state allowing him to maintain both supernatural awareness and practical human priorities. "These people need medical attention. And we need to report what we've learned." As they prepared to depart, Naruto consciously reduced his transformation, not suppressing it entirely as he once would have, but allowing it to set into a new baseline that maintained key aspects while appearing predominantly human. His eyes retained subtle violet highlights, his canines remained slightly more pronounced than normal, and though his wings receded, they left a sensation of potential energy between his shoulder blades, ready to manifest again at his command. This, he realized, was his true form now, neither fully human nor completely supernatural, but a harmonious integration of all that he was. Son of Sparda, inheritor of angelic grace, trained as a shinobi of the hidden leaf, vessel of the nine-tailed fox, all these identities merging into something greater than their sum. As they traveled back toward Konoha, their rescued charges carefully transported on stretchers created from available materials, Naruto found himself reflecting on Tsunade's parting words before this expedition: "Don't lose yourself in this process." Far from losing himself, he had finally found himself, his complete self, beyond the limitations of any single heritage or identity. Whatever challenges awaited in the coming conflict, he would face them not as a fragmented being struggling with disparate aspects of his nature, but as a unified whole with access to the full spectrum of his potential. The setting sun cast long shadows through the forest canopy, its golden light catching on the bronze highlights that now permanently thread his blonde hair, visible evidence of the transformation that had occurred not just in body, but in spirit. Naruto Uzumaki, son of Sparda, something entirely new. Chapter 3 End. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.